Hey guys, start the meeting. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. All right. Shelley, so are you on Shelley?
Oh,
I'm trying to keep me.
and now I lost your pen.
Again?
Okay, Catherine, let's do a roll call.
Willman,
Here.
Voorhees,
Here.
Kauf, Godus,
Here.
Davis, Stepp, here, Hershey,
Yes.
I'm here. Thank you.
All right, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Or continue. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Item number 8, agenda changes and conflicts. We have an agenda change. We are moving from the consent agenda, the minutes from January 16th, 2020, consider separately, as well as a chamber resort agreement contract for tourism promotion services. Are there any other changes? All right, are there conflicts of interest that any counselor has this evening?
I have none.
No, no conflicts.
I have no conflict.
No.
None.
Okay. All right. Item 9, citizens appearing before council for items not appearing on the agenda. We're limited to 3 minutes, and we'd love to hear anything you have to say. All right.
I needed 5, so I can't do it for 3.
All right. Bring it back for council comments. Go ahead, Charlie.
Hang on, looking for two computers here, so. Sorry, I gotta find them where I put them in here. Oh, I apologize. Somebody else wanna go ahead? I gotta find mine.
Rick.
Yeah, I just want to say happy Valentine's Day to all my fellow people on the council and to the staff. And it's been quite a year so far, and I think we're on to good things. So go out, buy some chocolate, and have some fun.
Thanks, Rick. Paula.
Earlier in our sessions, I wanted to reach out, or I did reach out to the city's streets department, public resources, and just say that we're really appreciative of what the good job they did during the huge snowstorm. And that was great to know that they were out there and able to get done as they got the things done. So that was awesome. And then I just wanted to, just wanted to give just a general heads up that we're still working on the detox discussion with many community members and starting to reach out to other neighboring communities. And I feel like it's got a lot of momentum, and I'm super happy with what Debbie Wild is doing with that work and the number of people involved and how engaged they are.
Okay. Charlie, you ready?
Yeah. Couple of things. Transportation Commission met a week or so ago, and we continued to talk about, they developed a strategic plan that should be ready, a 5-year plan, and they should be ready to bring that and present that to council, or at least through me to council at the next meeting, first meeting in March, because they had some tweaking to do to it. One of the things that did come up, and I think I talked to the council a little bit about this last meeting, is that the Transportation Commission is serving as a referral agency, and what they're looking at is to make referrals. They would be like any other agency on development projects, and kind of gave Terry Parch, who's our staff person, the gatekeeping goal to bring it to us where it's going to have major transportation impacts, or significant transportation impacts. So I think we kind of have that in place, and that's part of their overall duties as set out in the code. So both those things happen in transportation. The only other thing two other things I wanted to do is I wanted to just, add to Rick, what Rick said, and I wanted to thank Catherine for the chocolate hearts in the bowl. That was nice, thank you very much. And then the other thing is we talked at the last meeting about looking at charter amendments, and I don't want to lose sight of that. And I know we talked about work sessions in our pre-meeting, but I think somewhere in the near future, which near is but not January next year, but maybe somewhere mid to late summer, is we got to bring it up and decide if we want to look at that, what's the process, do we get citizens involved, and start that.
I do think I need to go through, maybe I'll try to schedule some time at the next meeting. I need to get an idea from you guys, what are your priorities for the work session? Because I know you have way more than we have time, and I want to get to what is most important to the quickest. And to do that, I need to have kind of consensus from you guys on what is. So I will try to think of a way to do that that is not horribly painful and doesn't require a facilitator, but it will require some time and maybe some pre-work. Okay.
Anything else, Charlie?
That's it, thanks.
Okay. I'll just jump in real quick with mine. Tonight we interviewed for boards and commissions, and one of the applicants for planning and zoning talked about how they would love to get back to these monthly work sessions. And we have a lot that we kind of sit up here in council and say, boy, we'd really like to address that, we'd really like to address that. And, again, it's the chicken and egg of, do we give them direction, do we get some from them? But I would love to empower them and actually request, if that is their desire, to go back to those monthly work sessions. If they find that productive and valuable, and if we find that the outcome of that productive and valuable. And I don't think it has to be a big deal, but if that's something they're willing to do, I think we could use some guidance on that. I think we also go ahead.
I'm just saying I need to talk to staff before you do that, because understand that it requires probably not an instant amount of work on their part to put those on.
Okay.
I'm not saying no.
No, you're no. I know sort of know when I hear it.
Worth looking at, though, if it helps P&Z, if they feel they can do their job better.
And I guess, I think a conversation on how much staff that they would like to have, if they're just going to sit around and advance some ideas forward, I guess I would like to see not a lot of staff requirement needed, other than somebody to open the door.
This is not my area that I focus on, but understand there's very little boards do that don't require staff time. It's just not how it's set up. So maybe ask us to look at doing it, maybe not monthly, maybe let us get started and try, and maybe it's more like quarterly, but just don't make it so restrictive that all of a sudden I'm smothering Hannah.
It has to be done by February 22nd. I'm joking. Yeah. Just talk to the board president, I guess, and see what their desire is. Because I do also wanted to say, and please pass on my behalf, Charlie, to Transportation Commission. I know they're a great group of people and they're working really hard, so please pass it on to them. The other thing I wanted to say was I know sometimes, we're all up here doing the best we can for the community, and sometimes we have issues that come before us that are contentious and that lead to conflict and strife, but we're all doing what we think is the best for the community at the time we're making these decisions. And sometimes we boil over a little bit and take things personal because we care so much about this community. And so sometimes we are maybe a little harsher in our tones to staff than we ought to be. We're a little harsher in our tones to each other than we ought to be. And I just want to thank everybody, because I know it takes a lot of patience, grace, and maturity to do this job and to do it in a way that serves the constituents. So I just want to say thank you to everybody up here. Lastly, happy birthday to Tony Hershey.
Hey,
It was Friday, thank you.
29 again.
Tony?
Thanks.
And my daughter turned 10
John,
last
you going
week.
to be council travel? Your comments?
Yes, we can do that. Tony, did you want to go?
I didn't have a chance, no.
Oh,
I
okay.
did want to go.
Go ahead.
Can you please time me to 3 minutes? Thank you.
Yes.
This sign is up there and it says for people who sign up to comment, it says, encourage you to be prepared, limit to 3 minutes, expect to have comments that are constructive, character assassination of city council or city staff will not be tolerated. But I'm going to assassinate city council, but it's just going to be me. Since I took office in May, by my calculation, extra budget this city has spent, or this council has approved, and I've voted yes on some of this, $9.4 million, including $4.3 million for the Municipal Operations Center and expenses to get it operational, $3.1 million for Two Rivers Park, $700,000 on the Roundabout, $625,000 to complete 7th Street, $60,000 for Lovo Trail, and $250,000 recently for the Western Petroleum land, and change orders for the 27th Street Bridge was $265,000, and then we had the Sari Park expenditure. And again, I voted yes for some of that. When the people of Glenwood Springs last April elected me and Paula and Charlie, they also voted that they wanted the streets fixed and they didn't want their taxes raised to do it. But we continue to spend money, and whatever fund it comes from, or whether it comes from the general fund or not, on things that are not streets. And we just can't keep spending like this, and we can't keep taking money from other funds. And frankly, I don't know that this city, someone said earlier this morning, I think it was, or today, Marco, that the city will be full at some point. If we're going to build more housing, that means more police, that means more expenditures. I just don't think we can afford it. So from going forward for today, with many exceptions, I'm going to be a no vote on this sort of what I call extracurricular or out of the budget spending. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. You get done in under 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Paula?
Are we talking to travel? Is that
Yes.
what- Okay. So there's a few times that I've gone to Deborah and said, can I go to this? And it always comes back to, we'll go to council, and that there was some possible, and I don't remember this, but some kind of travel budget that we had decided on. I know we had decided on a travel budget for city council, but we had not talked to specifically, is that divided by 7? Is it divided by whatever the importance of the issue is? And I just wanted to see if at some time, and maybe this is a session itself, that we could kind of sit through and talk through this on what are we looking at with our budget, what's the priorities for us? And I know, like with Rick, who's, I think you're Northwest Colorado government, and I'm with AG&C and Club 20, and then we have Charlie with CML. So we have all these things that are kind of out there that don't even incorporate travel that we need to do, say, if you have to go to Washington, D.C. or something. So I'm wondering if we can spend some time, maybe not now, but a session discussing what is the travel, what's the priorities, and where do we want to put it? And Deborah, if you could address that to some degree, that'd be great.
I am happy, like, we're happy to, this year, we did something different, and we separated your travel budget from my travel budget. Just because I think when I first got here, we did not have a council that traveled. We do, and I think you guys bring a lot, going out, you bring a lot of benefits back to the city. You can do a lot of good things while traveling. But I think what it's given you for the first time is the responsibility of managing your own budget in a way. Because it's hard for me to say, no, Rick, you can't go on that trip, but Paula, yes, you can. So, I want to give you that ability to manage that, but not be telling you what to do. So I think the best way for you guys to sort that out is to do it together. I'm happy to kind of set some time aside for you to do that, explain to you really how much money you have and how much you have left, and kind of let you guys take it.
And I think, if I may, I think personally, we need to look at, yes, I agree, let's have a conversation, and I think it should start with, what value do we get in Glenwood, as citizens of Glenwood, about being a part of any of these groups? What is the value of being a part of CAS, Colorado Association of Ski Towns, for example? And I know that because that's what I go to, so I'll put myself in the chopping block. What value does AC&G give us, or Club 20, or some of these other groups that, are they of immediate benefit to the citizens for us to be either a member of, heavily involved in, or something we just are a member so we can have a little bit of influence? I don't know, but I really want to have that conversation. I question a little bit of the value of some of these groups that we have historically been a part of. Because, maybe 5 councils ago, somebody said, I think it's really important for us to be involved in this group, and they wanted to be, and sure, why not? We don't want to tell each other, no, you can't be involved in that if that's what you want to do and it'd be good for the city, but I think we should start to kind of critically look at these things, and then what is the cost? So, I'd say let's put it on a soon future work agenda, because I know we have tons of them. Tons of room.
I think this one, yeah. I feel like this one should probably go on sooner rather than later if you guys want to make these decisions.
I think that can be pretty quick
Yeah, it feels
conversation.
Honestly,
Yeah.
it feels like a 15-minute, 30-minute conversation.
It is all within your span of control.
I have very little control. Have you not noticed? Okay.
Well, great, thank you for considering that. Just gives us some parameters to work
Yeah.
within.
No, I agree.
Look at the budget, there's 10,000 for professional development and 5,000 for travel in the council budget. I think that those two things got to CML conferences and,
That could get eaten up in 2 conferences.
yeah, doesn't take much to get the 5,000.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think we knew what the right amount or the wrong amount was because, I think my first year here, one person went to SEMO and that was it.
Right. And as addressed, I think you have a different council now. They're pretty involved. There's a lot of things happening regionally. So we're just at a different place, and that's
Yeah.
time. Could change again back to that 5 years from now.
This is a great
Perfectly fine.
conversation. Like, what is our region? How do we want to be involved? What role do we want to play? I love that.
Speaking of which, I'm leaving tomorrow afternoon to go to Denver to go to the CML Policy Committee.
God.
I thought of full disclosure, I had to bring it up.
Thank you for doing that, Charlie. I just want to say just a couple things. We do a lot of projects here as well. I already gave my 3 minutes probably, but, we're about to cut a ribbon tomorrow for a completed, or at least cleaned up, 27th Street Bridge. That bridge and the South Midland project, we were able to get $8 million of grants for. So, yes, there was hiccups. Yes, we went over some budget items on the construction management costs, but we have replaced the worst rated bridge in the community. That was, I believe that was over $12 million that we did. 7th Street is something that I wasn't incredibly supportive of personally, and gave me a lot of personal angst, where I sometimes did not have the most patience, grace, or maturity. But we did vote to fund the last $650,000 of that, because we did get $400,000 of a grant that would have just gone away. So I think that was a good investment. We've used some of our reserves for the Two Rivers Park project to do the shoreline restoration. We had a municipal service building that was falling down. This is all just stuff we've done the last year that was endangering employees. So, and this isn't just a laundry list of all the stuff we did. We do this stuff all the time that the public doesn't know. And so I think when we're talking about things that are, and I appreciate, Tony, this isn't necessarily directed at you, but I appreciate the desire to be frugal and fiscally responsible, but I don't want us to not take advantage of these leverage grants. I don't want us to be not putting employee safety first and foremost when we have a building that's literally falling down and endangering people, and experts have told us that this is not safe for our employees. So I didn't like voting for that. I didn't like that 20 years ago it was built there, but we had no choice. And so I think as we look into 2021 and the spending priorities, we need to look at employee retention, employee safety. We need to look at, yes, if we do build and have more development, we are going to require more services for our citizens. But once they move here, they are our citizens. Whether they work up in Aspen or not, they're our citizens, they're our neighbors. They're the people we see in church, or the people that we see at Strawberry Days and in the park. So I want to make sure that we don't have this us versus them mentality. I guess we can, but I don't think it's real productive. So I guess that's the last of my comments for the evening. And with that, speaking about, nope, that was not, I was going to have a great transition to introduce our chief of police, but I have to do consent agenda. Dang it!
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
It's moved by Shelley, seconded by Rick. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay. Item number 12, are we going to pull off
Minutes.
We have
minutes?
to talk about
Did
minutes.
pull off minutes and we
Yeah.
pulled up
Tourism
tourism.
board.
Tourist capture.
Yeah.
So let's do the minutes first. Charlie, did you want to?
Yeah, I appreciate it, and first of all, before I make my comments, Catherine, I appreciate how hard this is, and so my comments about minutes are twofold. One is, I'm concerned that the motions are not being recorded, and I think Deborah and I had some discussions about this, and I think we need to be clear on what the motion is that we're voting on, and to make sure the minutes are clear in that, and then try to make sure we review that we do the motions. And so if you look at item 19, and I don't know if you want to look at it, but this is the issue, we're going to add the stairway to the Sayre Park, I'm strike that. Yeah, Sayre Park. Is that right? Yeah. Sayre Park improvements, we're going to add the stairway. Tony, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that what you moved is we do it, and if we had more than 15,000 to make it compliant with ADA, we weren't going to spend that money.
I'm sorry, repeat that?
You moved to spend up to 15,000 for the stairway, but if it had to become ADA compliant, it became more than that, then we would not spend the money. The way the motion is worded, it says we'll improve it to 15 with the condition that it be ADA compliant. I don't think that was the motion. And so that doesn't reflect the motion or what we voted on.
Can I ask a point of order? So, Catherine, when you get these motions, I think this is just worth real quick. It's more than a minutes conversation, but do you try to record it as we're making the motion, or do you, when you do the minutes, do you look back on the actual video to see what the motion was?
We look back at the video the next day and we listen to the motion that's being made, and we put the exact verbiage in that the person making the motion said. And then sometimes when it's amended, we listen to it a few times to see what was amended. So it would be kind of helpful for us a little bit too if we could restate the motion so that it's more clear.
I agree. I think it's hard to do what you're doing. That's why I'm not critical. I just think we need to be careful, because my understanding is Councilman Hershey moved to improve the Sayre Park stairway up to $15,000 and make it ADA compliant unless that increased the cost beyond that. We didn't want to spend any more than $15,000 on that. And the way it's worded, it doesn't say that, in my view.
I can go back and listen to it again, but
Okay.
I wrote down what Tony actually said. But I'm happy to
So,
listen to it.
I think it'd be good to have the motioner restate the motion clearly before every vote, especially when it can kind of get convoluted with additional spending, and if it's this and that, and if A, B, and C, then D and E, because there is the intent. There's a lot of times where it's like, no, I intended it to say this,
Right.
but I didn't say that. I said what is on the videotape, and so I want to make sure that, I think that'll help Charlie with that. Just make sure we
Yeah.
require that, and if I forget to actually do that, will somebody please remind me or remind the motioner as well.
Okay.
Does that address your questions, or did you want to make a motion to amend the minutes to reflect that?
There's another one, but now I'm looking at the minutes again. I must have misread it because the motion's correct. It was in item 27.
Item
There was-
27 originally
Yeah,
didn't
there
have
was
the vote,
one,
and now it does. I had sent in a correction on that.
pardon?
Item 27, I believe, is the one about the bridge, and it didn't have the actual vote, and I had sent the correction into
I do.
Catherine.
I did
Yeah, and
add
she
that.
fixed it.
Okay, so that got fixed. Okay, that may have been,
That was missed.
okay, all right. No, that's fine. Again, when I become perfect, that everybody else can, but I'm far from that, and I recognize that, and I appreciate it. But the votes are really our record of what we're doing. That's a critical thing. I think at some point we need to have discussion whether we need to have more of the discussion in the minutes or not, or whether we want to have them shorter or longer. And Deborah and I had this discussion the other day, so.
We've had this discussion a couple times.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I think once again, and you guys are going to get really sick of me saying this, but you also don't want administrative expenses to grow, is the clerk's office has 2 employees, and if we get into in-depth minutes, we probably need more than 2.
And we can't afford that, I agree.
It would not be where I would choose to spend money.
And I believe Carl has advised us in the past that he would prefer that we have minutes that reflect decision points and not intent or context, and that if people want context, they should attend meetings or look at the YouTube videos, because it's too difficult, even if I believe, I'm not going too far on a limb, that if we had a department of 15 people in the clerk's office to try to capture the intent and the context of the minutes, of the meeting in the minutes, I don't know that we could do it.
No, and I agree, and when I was city attorney, ages ago, before you guys were born, the minutes were like 30, 40 pages long, because I think it had almost everything everybody said, and that's absurd too, and that gets out of the intent, but that's what the other way to do it. But I just think we need to make sure that somebody reads the minutes, have a general idea of what's happened in the meeting. And again, I'm not overly critical about that, but it's just, the motions, in my view, are real important, so. Okay. So if we could maybe table the approval of these minutes, have Catherine look at that one motion, see if it didn't, then we might want to correct that, because I think that was the intent. Okay. And we could do that at a later meeting, but if we got to correct it, we don't need to do that. Okay?
Okay,
Thank you, and I appreciate your indulgence on the minutes, because I think it's important.
I agree. Okay, next item, does pull from the consent agenda, the Chamber Resort Agreement Contract for Tourism and Promotion Services.
That was me. And just for clarity, did we not remove these at the beginning of the meeting? These 2 things from the consent agenda?
We
Yes.
did.
That's what I was thinking.
And that's why we're addressing them now.
Okay, I just
Yeah.
wanted to
Yeah.
make sure what the process was.
Yeah.
Voted on
Okay,
consent.
so my concern on that was, as part of that contract, it appeared that the statement that the tourism board made in August toward some of the things that were going on at that point in time and what to use the tourism funds were incorporated into that contract, and I just want to make sure that they are separate documents and it's not part of our 2020 contract moving forward.
Can you point out where that
Yeah,
is,
'cause I
please,
would-
Paul?
Sure, so if you go to,
If you go to consent agenda, right?
yeah, I'm going to the consent agenda.
It's item F under consent agenda.
I'm
And,
just wondering if it's in the actual contract.
and Steve
verbiage?
actually talked to me about this a little bit, so it might be separate, and I might have just misread it that way. Now I have to scroll through it. So if you go to the Tourism Promotion Marketing Plan, and you scroll down the page, what page is this, 13? It talks about, they're greatly concerned about the pattern developing by the city council to draw the tourism promotion funds. I just.
So is that under the contract or under the?
It looks like it's in the contract for me.
Can you point that to me?
Page 13?
Okay, page 13 of
Page
the actual
13.
contract.
And I
yeah.
just felt that wasn't part of a contract for 2020 and our agreement for them taking care of our tourism
13.
funds.
Oh.
Right, and I think I can help address that. The contract that we signed is the professional services agreement, and it's the first, 6 or 8 pages of that document. Everything behind that are separate documents, and just kind of in the interest of full disclosure, I wanted to get them all in there. I probably should have, named them separately. Those aren't really part of the contract, but they are part of the relationship. So I just wanted everybody to be on the same page, but I probably should have put them in individually,
Talk about
if that
this.
helps.
So, Mr. Mayor, can that be removed?
Well, it's not part of the contract that we're
Can it be?
approving.
That wasn't my question, though. Can that statement be removed? Yes or no?
What statement
The
specifically?
one that Paul is concerned about.
I think it's just there as background information.
Oh,
We
I
can-
understand.
So do you want to remove, from the packet
Uh-huh.
for this meeting?
I want it stricken.
Can we just remove the whole plan, which was attached as an exhibit and is not actually part of the contract?
Would that help, Tony?
Yes.
I'm fine with that.
I don't know, can we do it? Can we do it?
I mean, I would think, and I could be totally wrong here, but I mean, what was in the packet was public record, so it will remain public record.
Could we clarify in the minutes that that plan is not part of the contract?
Sure.
Is that, yeah, I would accept that as a motion. Would you like to vote on that, Tony?
Yes, thank you. Did you want a motion?
Wait a minute.
I would move,
Can I, before you do, just
Sorry,
clarify,
sure.
what are we removing?
we're not removing it, we're just clarifying, Mr. Wellman, that that vision statement is not a part of the contract, or their opinion and characterization of what council is doing is not part of the contract.
So it's on page 13 under the PDF that's saying it's a contract, I believe.
But it's not.
But
So
it's
we're
not.
just clarifying in our motion that it's not.
Okay, because the contract itself says, and Anna, correct me if I'm wrong, is Exhibit A is everything, and paragraph 1 of the scope of the agreement. So if we're removing a page from Exhibit A, which that's part of,
I don't know that we're removing it, we're just clarifying that it's not part of the
No, you're right.
contract.
I think what ended up being requested was just in the minutes, we will note that it is not part of the contract.
But it seems to be.
Does it seem to be?
Well,
I mean, I haven't seen, I didn't have the contract, but the contract
Nice catch.
says that the scope of the agreement is what's set forth in the marketing plan.
which is Exhibit A, which includes that page.
Right.
Right.
Well,
So
then I
can
can't
I-
support it.
are we doing
So we talked
speaking?
about withdrawing this and then looking at it and
Yes.
having them resubmit, or just withdrawing it from this consent agenda and,
I thought it was just withdrawing it from the consent agenda and discussing it in regular, just the regular agenda. But do you want
Yes,
to?
we are doing, so it
Oh,
has
that's where-
been
okay,
resolved,
great,
it has
great.
been withdrawn from the consent agenda, we are considering it now.
okay.
And I believe Tony has a motion, but it's no
I
longer
haven't made
accurate.
it motion. I haven't made it yet, because Charlie
Right.
has to point.
Okay, and so new information from Anna, it is part of the contract.
Okay. Then how about you guys direct me to let the Tourism Promotion Board know that you are signing this contract with that being removed, if that's the will of the council. And this way, we can remove it from the contract. And if they disagree, which I imagine they will not, we'll bring it back.
But, and my concern is that this is a contract that they now we're changing the terms, coming back to them and saying, here, sign this, but wait a minute, that's not what we agreed to. So-
Well, it hasn't been approved.
Okay,
I
yeah.
mean, I don't think, I apologize, I don't have the background information on it.
I understand.
Yeah.
I think it's here for approval. on the
I'm
consent
sorry,
agenda.
Shelley, you're right.
And we could always ask staff to bring us back a clean copy for us to approve at the next meeting as well. We could always do that.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Shelley.
Okay, yeah, I'd just like to say, now that I see that letter in there, I mean, that our contractor, the chamber, for this contract has included, this letter from what is supposed to be an advisory board to city council on tourism promotion in their marketing. For the tourism board, they made this kind of recommendation to city council. We heard it and we did not agree with it. So for that to be included from this advisory board in their marketing plan, I think is entirely inappropriate and yes, should be removed.
Here. Is that a motion?
I would,
I would just move that we do not approve the contract with the marketing plan, with
Second.
this letter included in the marketing plan.
Second.
It's using their marketing plan contract to make a political statement using one of what is supposed to be an advisory board to the city, not to the chamber. So, I don't find it
Let me
appropriate.
restate that motion then. And let me apologize to Rick, who I pushed the wrong button and did not recognize. I apologize for that. The motion, I believe I heard from Shelley, is that we strike this part of the contract, or this addendum, the Glenwood Springs Tourism Promotion Board tourism or position statement dated August 2019. Were you?
My motion was that we do not approve the contract if it includes this letter from our advisory board, which is the Tourism Promotion Board.
Okay.
Second.
Been moved by Shelley, seconded by Tony. Further discussion, Rick.
Well, yeah, this is one of those perennial issues that has come before us, at least for the last 3 years that I've been on the council. And, I just wonder, and I defer the legal advice from you, Anna, if we could just go ahead, approve the contract, but excising this portion of Exhibit A. I mean, it's not critical to the contract. It doesn't dictate any terms that we would be voting on in terms of the financial and oversight relationship that we have with the Chamber of Commerce. And as a liaison to the Chamber of Commerce, I would say that, it's important that there be some regularity there. And then to my fellow councilors, I'd say that it's also important that we sort of solve this overhang sort of issue, but I don't believe that this is necessarily the forum to do it. And the Chamber has asked that we have a sit-down meeting, and this would be one of the agenda items that we would sort of discuss. But so there's nothing in this political statement that really impinges upon the contract itself. I just think it's sort of an untoward thing and maybe an oversight that it's in here because it was definitely the boilerplate for another document. So I would, I would support a motion that would say that we would simply dispense with this exhibit in the consideration of the chamber contract and the pending vote that we would have.
I have a suggestion.
Yeah.
What if we keep exhibit but reference the page numbers that don't include that letter? So what if we, on the record, approve the agreement, but with pages 4 through whatever the end is of Exhibit A, and approve it like that, and then if they don't want it, then, because Exhibit A is intended to describe the scope of services, and I agree that page 3, that letter doesn't address scope of services, or if, I think that's what
Okay.
my suggestion.
Okay, so
Yeah,
we're going to
thanks,
take it back to
Anna.
the original, hold on.
We have a
got-
motion on the table.
We have a motion on the table. We have legal counsel to the original motioner. Go ahead, Shelley.
I would just, with all respect to the chamber and to our tourism board, the tourism board is advisory to council. I feel like we should not edit their Appendix A to their contract. It's their document. They presented it to us, so I guess I'm more inclined to kick it back to them and ask them to edit their Exhibit A. And I would just like to make a statement. I have the utmost respect for the chamber and the work that they do in our tourism promotion. But I was also on council in 2009, I believe, when we put the tourism promotion contract out to a public bid. And the chamber won it at that time because they had by far the best application for that promotion for the city. But since that time, it's been renewed on an annual basis. And having attended a tourism board recently, it's a very fine board. They work very hard, and they're very passionate about marketing and tourism for Glenwood Springs. But you do get the feeling that they work for the chamber. And I think the whole reason they were set up as a city advisory board was so that they are helping us to oversee our contractor, which is the chamber, and has this marketing contract. But they should be advisory and watching out for the benefits and what serves the city best in tourism promotion. City Council has been very clear in our statement of deciding to use a small portion of the tourism accommodations tax fund to help us keep downtown clean and pay for the extra maintenance that's required with the influx of visitors and the amount of tourism that we have downtown. And to raise the level and keep it very nice downtown so that we present a good face for our visitors. So for this letter to be included, I can't accept that, so.
Okay. Charlie Woolman.
So as we know, the council agreed and we appointed an ad hoc committee of the tourism board, the DDA and city council to deal with this issue of downtown maintenance. We've met, I think, 3 times. We met shortly after the first year, I think around January, middle of January of this year, and we're still looking at how to spend, how to fund the maintenance issues. It's a very proactive, a very collaborative process. And my concern by saying, we don't like this, we think you did something tricky, is, and I don't think that necessarily what you're saying, I don't think it's the message we want to send to that ad hoc group. Seems to me that reading the first paragraph of the agreement, it's effective January 1, no matter what date we sign it. We're funding this, we're giving them the money. It would be better to table this item and to see, enter into conversation with the tourism board to see if they want to remove this and give it back to us without that in there, because the council didn't feel that was an appropriate place to be in the contract, appropriate document in the contract. It's a collaborative method of going to them, not just saying, you know, you're trying to sneak something by us, which is what I'm hearing. I guess I'm offended by that because I don't think they're trying to do that. So I'm going to move to table this item until the conversation with the tourism board occurs to determine the attachments to the contract.
So, do we have an alternative main motion?
No, table.
There's too much.
No, table.
Motions.
Table under Robert's Rules of Order overcomes, if it's seconded and voted, it overcomes the underlying motion. You table the motion.
I'll write that down.
Okay.
Or a second to table?
I just want point of interest, point of inquiry. Order. No, it's point of inquiry. What entities are on the ad hoc committee?
Pardon?
What entities are comprised?
The board has 3 members, DDA has 3 members,
Okay.
council has 3 members.
Okay, thank you.
And the tourism board includes a chamber representative.
A chamber member.
Okay.
Chamber usually shows up, Angie and others in the chamber usually show up at it.
I'm going to second Charlie's motion.
Okay, so we have a motion to table this. And if this fails, your motion, just for my clarity, is to...
Okay.
Then it comes up for a vote. If it isn't tabled, then it would come up for a vote. Did you second, Rick? Is that?
I did.
So it's been motioned by Charlie, seconded by Rick. For my own edification, I want to know what
Right.
your motion was in juxtaposition with Charlie's is, because they're similar.
They are very similar. Tabling it, and all I would say is, we just do not approve the contract right now. We send it back to the chamber, which is where it came from, who is our contractor in this situation, and we just ask them to remove this page from Exhibit A.
So tabling
And
it would...
resubmit it.
Tabling it would not remove this. It would potentially just bring it back in 2 weeks with
Charlie's
this.
motion is still there to be voted on at
Gotcha.
a later
Right.
time.
Okay.
I don't see the difference with tabling it, so,
I think it's,
I mean,
There
we're
is.
going
It's a
back
me-
and
it's a message to
asking
me.
though,
It's a
but the
me-
tourism board is advisory to council. We do not need to ask them
I
to.
appreciate that, Shelley, but I
Okay.
think it's a
Hold on,
message.
you're up.
Yeah.
First of all, I don't think there's any sneaky intent to this. I think it was
I don't think
part
it's
of their
sneaky either.
whole process of putting things together. They added this in August. I just didn't think it was pertinent in this situation when we're talking about a contract and the budget. And
Agreed.
if we table it, I don't know how we legally can go back and also say, we're tabling this because we want to change. So I almost feel like we have to send it back to them in some way. And in tabling it, I don't know if we're doing that. So I'm really concerned about that, and I'm just also concerned that, I'm not saying that, they had their message and they made their message, but I don't think it's a message that has to be carried forward into 2020. We considered it, so I'm trying to figure out a way, speaking to what Rick said, and I'm on the tourism board as a liaison. I need a good relationship with these people, but I just want them, them to understand we heard you, but it's not part of the budget process. It's not part of our contract. So how do we do that to what you're saying, Charlie, and make them understand, and Rick, to say, we don't mean this as an offense. It's just not pertinent to what we're talking about
To
here.
the contract.
Yes. Counselor Hershey.
Charlie, can you hear me? I know you're sick. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I could hear you.
Okay, I'm not
Thank
as
you.
good a lawyer as you and Ann, and I don't do a lot of contracts, but I just think as an attorney, as a city councilman, as a representative of the city, this is not appropriate language for a contract. It's almost if I went to buy a car at Bighorn Toyota and they added in the contract, well, this cheap moron probably can't afford this Toyota, but we're going to sell it to him anyway. That is just not the sort of language. It has nothing to do with the contract. It's a political statement that they're making. I know they're upset about this issue, but I'm not voting if this language is for this. And you want to table it, you want to continue it, you want to send it to Mars, I don't care, but I'm not voting for it if this language is in the contract.
In the interest of not having this completely spiral to a 3-hour meeting, it feels like everybody's had at least 2 bites of the apple to make comments. So Charlie and Rick, if you could make your comments very brief,
I will.
that would be fantastic.
I just want to answer Paul's question. I think tabling it gives them the opportunity to say, oh, that's not what we intended, this is what we really want to do, we'll present a new contract, and we'll withdraw that contract. That's what I think is going to happen.
So somehow it would be returned to
Yeah,
them.
we direct staff, after this, they tell them what our concerns are and see if they present us with a new contract. I think that's what's going to happen. I think it has a less negative message than just saying we don't like it.
And when
I mean,
tabling it, could that be part of that discussion of, Deborah, would you make sure this gets back to the tourism board or?
Poor Deborah.
I believe with members of the chamber board in the audience that they will indeed receive the message.
Thank you, Christian.
And I don't even know if I have to stick myself in the middle of it, but Lisa and I have a good relationship and I'm happy to talk to her as well.
Well, Christian's you're on the tourism board?
No.
No,
Okay.
it's chamber board.
But we're talking about the tourism contract, right?
Right.
But
Okay.
the chamber
Yeah,
board
well, it's a chamber
holds the contract.
Gotcha.
Right.
But, okay.
Chamber
And
holds the
Rick.
contract.
So all I'm going to say in just 10 seconds is I don't think there's anybody up to, thinks that this is appropriate language in this contract. So the question is, do we take action by just excising it? And I guess the legal advice is that we can't do that. Or do we table it? And, either way, I think the message is that we just don't think the language belongs in this contract. So I'm fine either way. Thank you.
And I think there's a motion to table on the,
So we do need to apparently take the motion for tabling first. Let's call the question.
you can take this out.
Hershey, no. Steph, yes. Godish, yes. Count, no. Voorhees, yes. Wellman, yes. Motion passes.
Okay. So it'll be back next time, Mr. Mayor? Well, I guess we'll see.
We'll see.
Okay,
It's
thank you.
tabled.
Thank you.
Very similar outcomes.
Okay, so
That's fine.
Maybe snacks, I don't know, I apologize.
we are on to our regular agenda item. We're so far behind.
36 minutes.
Are we behind?
Thank you. Are we behind? Was that serious? This is killing my theory of a 6-member council being so much more efficient. Chief Daris, I am so sorry we don't have time for you tonight. I'm joking. Please come up.
Welcome to City Glenwood Springs.
Do we have an introduction? Or?
Maybe he's going to
It's
change his
not that
mind.
fancy, but as he is walking up, I just want to
It's not that
officially.
fancy. Look at him.
Well, no, I'm not that fancy. I want to welcome Chief Daris to our community. We're so happy to have you. Thank you for not running away at 2 feet of snow. And now is his chance to probably give a better speech than me. So,
Make it good.
I'll be brief. Council, Mr. Mayor, members of our community, I do want to say that personally, this is the pinnacle of my professional career, and I certainly appreciate this opportunity has been extended to me. I do appreciate and respect the responsibility that comes with this position, and certainly have an appreciation for your trust in me as I prepare to lead this organization and our public safety services here in Glenwood Springs. And I do have to recognize Deborah for what I think was the best decision in selecting me here for the city. But certainly I do need to personally thank her on behalf of my family and I. We are very excited about coming to Glenwood Springs, and I can commit to you that I'm absolutely committed to making this community, my family, and our police department very proud of the work that we we'll be moving on to accomplish. So thank you to all of you. Everyone's been extraordinarily friendly and welcoming to me, and I just really couldn't have asked for more. It's exceeded my expectations, so I look forward to it, and again, thank you all very much.
Great.
Thank you,
Thanks.
please. I'll just say, we had when we had the community meet and greet, I think we all came back really impressed by the quality of the candidates, and particularly you, Chief Darris. So I think, I don't mean to speak on behalf of all of us, but I think I will, and say we're very excited to have you. We're really looking forward to seeing what you're going to be doing here, and just welcome you and your family to the community.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome.
All right. 27th Street Roundabout.
Good evening, Council. I'm going to bring up a presentation here in just a second. Where did it go?
While Terry is doing that, I was just going to say, I asked her to come and present to you guys like the different decision factors that went into the decision we made on this roundabout, because many of you guys were not on council, probably none of you maybe, were on council when we chose this specific design,
Except Steve.
except for Steve, who is not here.
He's not.
I heard there'd be peace in the Middle East if it wasn't for this roundabout.
Is that true?
Well, with that, we better make it good, right?
There you go. There's your lead in. Everything's
you.
uphill from there.
So, as Deborah already said, many of you weren't on council when we made some of the design decisions that were a part of this project. So I'm going to lead in and kind of describe our design process, and then kind of lead you to where we are today. The original design began in 2015 and 2016. Some of our estimates of the traffic that was using the intersection took place at that time. We had a local engineer who is also still on the Transportation Commission, Lee Barger, advocate for a mini roundabout in that intersection. And he did a presentation to council. Council was definitely interested. My division was interested. We thought that a roundabout could have some of the best operations for that intersection, so we continued to explore that option. These are some of the presentations that we did at the time, evaluating, the idea of the mini roundabout and how it was used, in other local jurisdictions in Snowmass, as well as in national, other locations nationally. This was one of our initial analysis of what we call level of service, which revolves around the intersection delay, so number of seconds that you might spend using that intersection. And you can see that, with a baseline analysis of at that time, we evaluated a signal. We evaluated a signal with an AM turning restriction, which is kind of what we had in place. We evaluated a split phase signal, and we evaluated a mini roundabout. We went ahead and hired AMIC Foster Wheeler, which is now Wood, to assist us with a traffic analysis, and then eventually with the full design. So when we were evaluating the design, we had a kind of a critical discussion with CDOT. We all recognize, CDOT included, that to build an intersection there that would accommodate a 20-year volume involved widening that bridge from 2 lanes to 4 lanes, and widening our roundabout, and making improvements on Midland to accommodate the wider roundabout and a wider bridge. That project was very expensive. I think we were estimating at the time it was about $38 million. We were weighing that against the Southbridge project, and the Southbridge project came in at about $47 million at that time. And the conclusion of that discussion was that if Southbridge was in place, we could allow for a smaller bridge at 27th Street with a roundabout intersection, which would keep us from having to build such a wide bridge and having to take properties on either side, either Cottonwood Landing or the Racket Club condos, and/or accommodate a wider intersection at 27th and South Grand. Oh, sorry, that's a really confusing slide, isn't it? So again,
Sonogram.
yeah, I know. It looks like it.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. I'm well past that. So again, these are our kind of baseline analysis, all of the engineering that we do around delay and level of service, and how long the queues are entering and leaving the intersections. This is an improved baseline survey. I don't know, some of you probably remember when we were evaluating the Grand Avenue Bridge and the detour routes, we recognized that a lot of people were going to try and come through the 27th Street intersection. So at that time, we proposed, CDOT accepted, adding a second lane, a double left turn lane at 27th to allow you to come back into town. And so with that, we saw some service improvements. So this was the analysis of the long-term growth. It is a 20-year analysis. We do this for every major large project that we have, especially if it has state or federal funding. And the conclusion of this, without looking at all of these numbers, was that a signal was possible, and it performed better in the AM peak hour. But a roundabout performed better in the PM peak hour. And there wasn't a lot of difference between the final operational analysis. And again, the idea of taking more right-of-way to allow for a signal kind of led us in the direction of preferring the roundabout. Many of you might remember that when we evaluated the different configurations of the bridge in place, we looked at a bow to the north, we looked at a bow to the south, we looked at a bridge that's on the current alignment, we looked at the options to eventually widen the bridge if needed, and that was one of the reasons why we ended up on the current alignment with just a straight bridge, because it can be widened in the future if a future council decided that that's what we wanted to do.
What would the impacts of that widening be?
So as we talked a little bit earlier about the widening would really necessitate taking a property, either Cottonwood Landing, that first level of homes there, or on the Racket Club side, some of those first units. It really needs at least a 3-lane bridge, and would be better with a 4-lane bridge. So both of those options really involve taking personal property there for a signal. If we, and I can go into the roundabout side in just a second.
And just two, because this was designed with federal funds and then built with federal funds, if you take houses, it's not just the pain of taking those houses, you also have to provide people with the same type of housings in a similar situation. Relocation of residents is horribly painful on the residents and horribly expensive.
Right. Yeah, Deborah's correct. Similar provisions exist for businesses requiring a relocation and similar exposure and living expenses and all kinds of those things. The Uniform Act is actually amazingly complex. So these are the trucks that we analyzed going through the intersection. You can barely see them there. I apologize for the slide. But we analyzed a 40-foot wheelbase, essentially, and that is a standard beer, and most food delivery falls into that category. And then we analyzed a truck with a 67-foot wheelbase, which is the maximum legal load, a semi-truck length. In the pre-development conditions, so without a roundabout, a WV 40 makes all of the movements safely. In the pre-development condition, again, without a roundabout in place, the WB 67 can't stay in its lane. But as you can see, there's no roundabout to go over there, but they do have to swing out into the opposing lane. In the developed condition with the roundabout in place, the WB 40 still makes all the turning movements safely using that internal apron that we have. WB 67 does have trouble. Again, it's that full-size semi. It can make right turns. It can't make left turns. The through movements are possible. The right turns actually are very tight, and the through movement north and south is very tight. I was standing out on site yesterday when we had a FedEx truck come through, a full-size semi. They came down from State Highway 82. They were trying to make, I think that they were en route to the FedEx facility off of CR 154, but they must have gotten lost. So as they approached the intersection, we realized that they wanted to take a left-hand turn. And it is one of the movements here that said that it's difficult to make. They were able to get the truck through without hitting the center island. It was not easy, and traffic control was on site. It can be done. I guess between the engineering division and the public works division, we have asked, any operators that we have talk to and encourage them to contact us, and we can help with traffic control should they really need to be down there. We can assist in getting them through. So this is our developed condition. You can see that the roundabout just fits there in that intersection. We had a very minimal impact. You can see both on the Cottonwood Landing side and on the Racket Club side with a 2-lane bridge that existed before and reconstructed today. And we chose a smaller roundabout design so that we wouldn't have high impacts on A&B Bank or Berthoud Motors. This is a larger detail. You can see it's kind of overlaid by one of our more recent, or underlaid by one of our more recent aerials. Some of the construction equipment is still in place there. So our public information officer has been following some of the Facebook comments and concerns. And I think we've heard a few from the council as well about, questions about the roundabout. Could we have built a larger roundabout? So we did go ahead and take the aerials and lay in some of our larger roundabouts just for scale so that the council could see what the impacts of having larger roundabouts in the intersection would be. And here you can see, the Midland and 27th Street intersection. So the roundabout just immediately to the west. And you can see that we do have a large impact on A&B Bank in particular. We would end up taking that property and relocating that business. Berthoud Motors would also be impacted, but not as great a scale. This is the exit 114 roundabout. You can see it's even larger at 190 feet in diameter. Again, we have to take the A&B Bank property to put that kind of scale in there. So with that, please let me know if you have any questions.
You talking about the FedEx truck, was that coming off of Glen Avenue down, or is it coming over the bridge and then trying to go up? I didn't quite understand.
So it came from State Highway 82, westbound on 27th, and then wanted to take a left-hand turn, so through the roundabout and headed south on South Grand.
So to come back into town?
No, I'm sorry, south headed back towards
I'm
the
sorry.
highway, CR
Thanks.
154.
I'm directionally challenged, thank you.
No worries.
Tony?
But you said you used traffic control to help the Federal Express truck?
We did.
Obviously, that's not going to be there forever.
Yes. Again, we don't often, but we sometimes get calls from large delivery trucks and people trying to bring loads through town. We have encouraged those folks to call us, and we are willing to help, with our officers if needed, for traffic control if they absolutely have to be down there. one thing to know is that, we currently have a truck restriction on Midland between 8th and 27th. We also have, physical bumps in the road to prohibit speed, but, I think as a whole, I think the city tries to prohibit larger vehicles from being in that corridor. I think, when South Bridge is developed, we will ask all large trucks to route from, for instance, the 4-mile corridor and any of the businesses that would be further south on the airport road out to State Highway 82 through that extension and avoid this internal route. But in the meantime, we do have some businesses that operate down there. We have talked to the little grocery store, the Midland Market, about their deliveries and made sure that they could get in and out. We did spend time with Berthoud Motors and their movements before we completed this design to make sure that all of the delivery vehicles for the cars could get through. So I think that it takes a little bit of work and it's not perfect, but I don't think we could have really fit a larger intersection in there.
Thank you. Paula?
Just a couple questions. So we have those limits on Midland. Do we have limits like that on South Grand, on size of truck traffic going down South Grand?
On South Grand, no.
So we don't have that set up? Okay.
Yeah.
And then on the roundabout itself, that interior circle, is there a way to change that landscaping or whatever it is so that if we do have an occasional larger truck, they can go over that interior circle? I don't know what the design is for what's in the center there.
There is a minimal kind of landscaping design in there, and, we have headed in that direction because, it's, I guess, kind of a community aesthetic to bring a little bit more green into these spaces. We have recently had a conversation with our Parks Department about, how those are designed, whether they can maintain those with the current staffing. And I think that we will probably bring that back to you in the future. It is an option to go ahead and pave this. I guess we did discuss, during the design, the idea of just, designing this as kind of a large hump to get over. Our conclusion was that we would probably have not just trucks using that, but kind of mischief around that. I've heard in the past that, on Midland, for instance, where we have our traffic calming humps, people actually go faster to see if they can, jump those things. And I think that just paving it leads to those kinds of discussions, but it is a possibility. It could be paved.
And my last question is, you were just talking about at South Bridge, asking trucks to exit at the new South Bridge location, but if I remember correctly, when you come out to 82, current design does not have the capability of turning left. And would we adjust for that, keeping in mind what we're kind of dealing with right now?
Yes. I mean, I think that I may have misstated or that intersection, or maybe I just got it mixed up with CR 154. We won't allow a left turn out of CR 154 just because we didn't have the volume at that intersection to really pay or advocate for another lane, because we would have to build an acceleration lane.
Sorry, CR 154 is which road?
So just to the north, where Red Mountain is.
Okay.
So we won't be able to make a left there. We will be able to make a left out of South Bridge.
Okay.
So it should accommodate all of the truck movements that want to then move back to town.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
Great. Councilor Cox.
Thanks, Terry. And I have a couple of questions, kind of similar to Paula's, but so it looked like in one of the slides you had that showed the larger trucks being able to maneuver through the smaller roundabout. There are certain movements that they can make through there.
They can.
So are we able to, for those larger trucks, are we able to set a specific route so that they don't end up, or it's only a mistake if they end up hitting that roundabout and wanting to make a movement that doesn't work for those trucks?
You know, we could try signs. I think if Chief Wilson were here, he would remind me of, you know, some of their troubles they had when 6th and Laurel was under construction. They would end up with trucks that had climbed to the top of Pine Street. And their GPS leads them there, and it's hard to understand why they end up there. So it's a little bit harder to control. Signs would be a good start. I'm not sure what steps we would take beyond that.
Beyond that, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and my only other question was paving, you know, a little more of that apron to allow them to, you know, maybe widen that envelope of movements that they can make in there.
Yeah.
You know, and just exploring that also, like you mentioned, possibly paving it over. It'd be nice to have some greenscape in there, but I guess, is it possible just to watch it for a while too and see how big of an issue this actually becomes?
That's what I would advocate. I mean, I think we, as a community, have suffered with this for a long time. And, you know, it's been under construction. We've had concrete barricades that have been in the way. I think that we should take all of the construction equipment away, allow it to sit for, you know, at least 6 months, and then decide kind of if we have an issue that we need to address out there.
Right.
You know, it was an expensive project, and I think that we really should try it for a little while.
Yeah, I would tend to lean that way, is let's see how it works for a while and see how many issues we actually run into out there.
Yeah. The one thing I would say about a green space too is that it does help to guide cars and trucks. You know, we talked about it a little bit with the 6th and Laurel intersection. You know, without having rocks or trees or any landscaping in those intersections, we had people, you know, just randomly making a turn across some of those medians.
Right.
And whether they could see them or not, you know, and just not having anything in there allowed them to make those decisions. So I think that the green space actually helps guide in some respects.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks.
I don't know who pushed buttons because my thing is not working.
Rick?
There we go. Rick, did you push one, Tony?
I did not.
Okay, I thought I heard a
Okay.
click.
Hey, Terry,
did
thanks.
not.
Just a quick question. The roundabout design, that was part of the federal money that we got, the state money. I mean, I don't really care who paid for it, but there was some oversight for that roundabout. It wasn't just our idea. Is that correct?
Oh, 100%. We went through a long process with CDOT to evaluate this intersection and every alternative with it. You know, the only, you know, concern CDOT ever had was, you know, do you want to design this larger project that would accommodate the 20-year volume without Southbridge or not? And, you know, the warning and concerns that we had, you know, CDOT did contribute through the off-system bridge fund for this project, and their direction was that we will pay for a replacement in kind. We will not pay for any expansion in capacity. So if you want to add 2 more lanes or another lane and expand the roundabout to the north and all of the work that would have needed to be done to expand this bridge, you know, that would need to come out of city coffers. It couldn't be paid for by the state.
So our chances of doing it by ourselves, that is extending it to 92 feet or 114 feet, whatever exit 114 is just about nil. I mean, given our resources in the city to be able to, you know, drastically alter what we've done here.
That's true. You know, Deborah's warning, I guess, about the Uniform Act and the need to not only acquire the property that's there, but then relocate those businesses to, or those homes to an equal spot, both for their business or, you know, even, you know, homes along the river, you know, with equal amenities. We would face that in a property acquisition. And I think it would be very expensive.
So do we have a video surveillance of this area?
I'm sorry, videos of,
So do we have a webcam of this area? So
We
we're
do.
kind of monitoring things? So-
Wow.
yeah, we can watch some of the trucks turn through.
I was actually going to be like, yeah, of course, Rick, we have video cameras all over. But apparently we do, so I guess that's a great question.
You know, we do for some of our construction projects because it helps, you know, in the end if we have to argue about things, so.
Yeah, yeah, not that we would.
Yeah, not
On
that
this
we would.
project at all.
Thank you, I'm done.
Things have been bubbling. Terry, I'm of course thinking that you've contemplated, but what is the size? This is 90 feet, correct?
About 98.
Okay. And the one on 27th and Midland is 130?
Yes.
What is the projected one in the tentative design for Midland Airport Road and 4 Mile?
I don't have that number in my head.
It's okay. Is it?
It's
okay.
130. Ryan says it's 130.
So it's big enough that when South Bridge comes through, all trucks of all sizes will be able to make that turn to access South Glenwood and 4 Mile?
We've analyzed all truck lanes.
Okay.
Yes.
I wanted to check. Also, just FYI, there is a sign that got put up that's blocking a sign that says the gold medal streams, or vice versa. I just noticed it today.
Okay.
Change it or not, I don't know. Maybe it's where I sit in my little golf cart when I drive by. It's a Prius, I'm kidding. Might as well be a golf cart.
Which
Tony
direction,
makes fun of me all the time.
Jonathan, so I can look for it?
It's on the right-hand side right before you enter the roundabout. Right as soon as you get off the bridge, you'll see it. It's a sign blocking a sign.
Okay, I'll go look.
That's
Thank
all. Thank you very much for that presentation.
Thank you.
And
Yeah,
great job.
thank you.
And everybody, we're going to have a ribbon cutting tomorrow at 2 o'clock to celebrate
Yes.
that this project is over-ish.
Will we be standing in the roundabout?
You will be standing
On the pedestrian bridge.
not on the bridge.
Not when trucks go by.
Jeez. Thank you, Paula. All right. We're right on time here. Item 14, ordinance 1, series of 2020, an ordinance of the City Council of Glenwood Springs amending code 100.040.020 and 120.020 of the Glenwood Springs Municipal Code. What is this?
I'm just, why is it not on consent for second reading? Was it taken up?
It was taken off.
Okay. So if you recall, we amended the code to impose some prohibitions on smoking and camping in the downtown core area. And the description of where it was prohibited was like in words. And then there's also a map. And I think that the map and the words may have not been, I don't know if it was not consistent, but there was a decision that we should just reference the map for consistency. And then as the map changes, we don't have to change the words.
Why, do you recall why we kicked this off consent agenda, Deborah?
I believe we thought we were taking off the sidewalk.
Yeah, that's what I think, because the next one is the resolution setting the sidewalk fees, so.
Because I believe we've already discussed this, and it was kind of a clerical.
Approve this ordinance.
Okay, it's been moved by Tony, seconded by Paula. Any further comments?
Public comment?
Are you serious?
I'm serious.
Okay.
My concern is the attachment deal with camping. I was looking at the map as I looked at the agenda packet, and we have an area from 9th Street north, which would allow for camping to occur that we may want to be preventative. I've suggested we may want to expand the map from 9th Street west to the river in north for camping, not smoking, but camping. I think we originally got away from the government complex for smoking because of some issues, but I don't think we want people camping in these areas while we're waiting to see what we do with development of those areas. And I don't think we want people camping in our courtyard over here behind Deborah. So I think we should expand the camping map to include everything 9th Street west and north.
Can I ask a
Over
question,
to the
Charlie?
river?
Huh?
Hold on.
To where?
Over the river.
Okay.
Ask Charlie, can I ask you a question? I thought that am I wrong that you were a municipal court judge? I thought camping in general was prohibited everywhere within the city limit.
I think that's the issue that is being fought out in the Denver courts right now, and as long as there's other places to camp, and I think if we, Anna, I don't know if you're as familiar with this as Carl may be, but my understanding is, as long as we're allowing other areas that are reasonable camping, I'm really concerned, given our population that sometimes occurs in the summer, that people are going to say, oh, there's no camping ban here, so we can camp down where the old sewer plant used to be, we camp where the old Voglar Park is, things like that. And I can't see why we shouldn't just make that camping ban go all the way over on 9th Street, all the way west to the river, so it kind of cuts through that Voglar Park area along the school and go north to the Colorado River, or to the railroad right away, I guess. And that way we prevent any camping in that area as well.
That's a great comment.
Thank you. Even though you didn't want it.
I thought this would be on consent agenda, but that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so Charlie, is there we have a motion and a second. We have further comments. Would there be any desire to amend the motion, or
I
Tony?
can amend the motion for Charlie if Paula agrees.
I can agree, but is that back to I think it's back to a question for you on, I just keep remembering, and this is vague in my mind, so please excuse me, but that we can't place too many limits on people resting and that type of stuff. I just want clarity on what that means.
I don't know if we can provide total clarity on what that means. I
Okay.
think, when we brought it forward, we said this is very aggressive. It may or may not be something that is easy to defend. So I think
That
you
was the
guys,
sense I got, that it was kind of like, we could try this.
right, we were trying to kind of give you the tools that you thought we needed, and we're giving it a go. Very legal definition.
Well, and can I speak?
Do I have to push my button?
Yes, you can. I'm kidding, sorry.
Right now, it looks like the no smoking area and the camping prohibition kind of are the same area, so I don't know. I guess I would suggest maybe kicking it back to our city attorney on expanding that no camping area, just
Or
to,
we could pass it first reading, and at second reading, if it doesn't work, we can always amend it and take it down again.
Except this is second reading.
If there's a consensus of
Second
council,
reading.
then what I'm suggesting makes sense. If not,
That makes sense.
It makes sense to me, but this is second reading, so I think we need to,
We'd have to bring it back.
we'd have to bring it back. We could
okay.
table it.
Right?
not in this one.
So since it's second reading, we have to move it off table it and bring it back with this additional.
If we want to have further conversation. But the motion that is on the table to pass this right now, we can take that vote right now, or you can withdraw the motion.
Not withdrawn.
Okay.
And can you also pass this as it is and then extend it later? I mean, Of that's course. the question.
We can revise the map.
Yes.
Right.
So for poor Catherine's sake, because I do believe that, Tony, you had been
Let me
amenable.
rephrase the motion.
Thank you.
Catherine, I have made a motion to approve this ordinance as written without any changes at this point.
Okay. Paul, is your second still stand?
We can second it once.
Yeah, my second stands. I feel like we can take this back and extend it and revise it later. I mean, this is just giving us a starting point to say this is how we want to think it. And I agree, Charlie. I'm like, that makes sense, but tabling it puts it off that much longer, right? It's like, you can still smoke and camp right now.
Right.
Am I understanding that
Well,
correctly?
we have the regulation that's confusing because of the written versus the map.
Right, right. I think we-
Confusing. I think it was what the problem was, it was
Yeah,
confusing.
I think this is just clarity right now, and then if we decide as a council, let's look at expanding this, we bring that up. So yes, I second.
Okay. Any more conversation? Seeing none, let's call the question.
Hershey, yes. Steph, yes. Goldish, yes.
Cope, yes. Voorhees, yes. Wellman, no. Motion passes.
Okay. Item number 15, sidewalks.
Okay, we
We could table it.
intended to pull that off consent, and it was not pulled off consent. So I'm asking if we can unapprove something that was approved, if you want to, or we can talk about it, and then we'll figure out how to fix it.
Uh-oh. Told you I voted no.
Related to sidewalks?
The resolution's on there, but
We were going to approve the ordinance on second reading.
Uh-huh.
It was on consent, and then it was asked that we take it off consent, but it wasn't taken off consent, so it was approved on consent.
You know, actually, my recollection, and you will possibly have a different recollection than I, was that you were going to ask some questions that you had that were specific to different areas of town.
Right.
And if there was items that you did not get resolved with staff, then you would ask for it to be taken off consent. That's my recollection.
okay, let's go with that.
Did that, if that is the case, hypothetically, did you have your questions answered? And if you did, is it okay just to keep it on consent as passed, or would you like further conversation?
I was okay with consent because I did not, once I really dug into the ordinance, I decided to, you know, that P&Z had looked at it, staff had looked at it, and I thought, it sounds like there's wording in there that, you know, I was concerned there were streets in town that weren't included in the list, but it sounds like they can be added anytime as the city does their street projects. Is that correct, Jen?
So what we have presented to you so far is a list of streets that we anticipate will be added to the engineering standards. And we have a bunch of things that need to be changed in the engineering standards. When you write 300 or 400 pages or however big the engineering standards are, there are things that you want to tweak. And so adding that list of street names will be part of that overall kind of first revision to the engineering standards. So what you approved so far allows for us to add that list to the engineering standards, and you haven't actually adopted the list yet.
Right, okay.
Then say, forget what I said, Jen and Catherine were right.
Sorry, would you say it again, Deborah?
So forget what I said, Jen and Catherine were right.
Okay.
Okay.
Paula, did you want to say something?
Yeah, and this is because I didn't realize the dooful.
I have a point of order. This has been approved in a vote of this council. I don't know that we can redo it unless we have a motion to undo it.
And
So it was approved on consent
Yes.
earlier.
Yes.
so it's approved.
So,
As it stands right now, it's approved on consent.
so I can ask my question of Jen in a personal meeting. That's
Okay.
fine.
If I may, we will
No,
be
we're
taking
done.
up the resolution to set the fees, so maybe there's an opportunity for the question to be asked in this next item. Yeah. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. I'm here this evening to present Resolution 2024, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Glenwood Springs, Colorado, setting fees in lieu of sidewalk pursuant to Section 070-040-070 of the Glenwood Springs Municipal Code. This resolution is after the passage of Ordinance 2, Series 2020, which approved changes to the code related to cash in lieu fees for sidewalks. The City Council would then set those cash in lieu fees by resolution. So this resolution recommends that the cash in lieu fees for sidewalks be $40 per linear foot for 5-foot wide sidewalks, which are required in residential zone districts, and then 8 feet wide sidewalks would be $71 per linear foot, and those are required in non-residential and mixed-use zoning districts. With that, I'm open to any questions you may have.
Shelley?
Hi, Jen, thanks. So, do we have existing cash in lieu for sidewalks right now?
We, so one of the changes that was made as part of the ordinance that was just passed and the consent agenda, what it said in the code before was that it would be based on an engineer's estimate.
Okay.
And this provides a little bit more certainty.
Right.
And it also allows for there to be a review, so it's setting the actual per linear foot cost, but it's something that is easier to amend for city council, so we can, if prices change dramatically, we can adjust that.
That this would be updated. So my main question on the fees is if, say, one of the streets is on the list, or if we have a street that doesn't have any sidewalks right now and doesn't really have room for it, say like, and the ones I'm thinking of, the area of town that I'm familiar with is like Lincoln and Garfield. They're up on the hill and they're really only a one-sided street. There's houses only on the east side, and then it drops off into the backyard below it. There aren't typically any sidewalks there. Traffic is very, very low. So those are some of the streets that were not included on the list. And I don't know that there are any sidewalks in those areas. There might be some homes that have sidewalk in them. It's kind of sporadic. So in that case, if a home was renovated over the amount that kicks in the sidewalk ordinance, would they be required to pay that fee, even though there isn't a sidewalk on that street, or?
So it would depend. So I brought this up, the language in red is what was part of the change that you just passed. So
Okay.
There's an exemption clause that's in, and that's what's in black on your screen today. So sidewalks are not required on local streets and districts where the minimum lot size is an acre or greater. In steep slope areas where sidewalks on one side of the street may be approved to reduce excessive slope disturbance, adverse impacts on natural resources, and potential soil erosion and drainage problems, according to the director or the city engineer, and I will defer to the city engineer. And then we added this on a limited list of local streets maintained in the engineering standards where the city has determined that one or no sidewalks shall be installed.
Okay.
So we haven't brought forward that change. We presented in the staff report and to the Planning Commission a list of streets where we have already done some engineering, the Red Mountain neighborhood, the Cedar Crest neighborhood, South Midland, where there's already been engineering done, and we have made a decision through that process, and for Cedar Crest and for the Red Mountain neighborhoods where we've gone out to the public and asked them what they would like. That was kind of the list that we put together. If there are other streets that we would like to add to that list, we certainly can do that.
They'll be added over time to engineering's discretion, right?
And what we were saying is that we would, that people couldn't necessarily petition to have their street be on there, but that the city engineer and the public works director would have some agreement that that street, you know, some of these streets, they're essentially alleys or kind of not even alleys. Some places in town might need to be on that list. And so
if it meets this exception, they don't pay the fee.
That's right.
Okay, but if it doesn't,
so
in particular, like I'm thinking along sections of Grand Avenue or something, they're going to have to put the sidewalk in, right?
Right.
They can't buy their way out just because they may want to.
And it used to be that we didn't have a possibility. So the 135 road is this really, you know, tangible example that we had and we struggled over. And one of the reasons why we wanted to put this cash in lieu fee in the code when we did the code rewrite is because the only way that it's a substandard right of way, a sidewalk won't fit. Just this struggle. You know, Planning Commission, you know, talked about it for hours. I might not even be exaggerating. It might have been a couple of hours where they talked about they really wanted to have a sidewalk on 135 road, and it just doesn't physically fit. And so they had to go for a variance. And so we created this language so that there is a path so that people can do this versus like having to go to Planning Commission and ask for a variance related to the sidewalk.
But
So
it won't be used in places where the sidewalk can fit and it's appropriate and needed. Is that right?
Right. So, I mean, I think that we're trying to build a little bit of flexibility in there, and if we don't have that list quite right, I think we're open to putting some of those, especially those streets that are, you know, essentially very, very narrow alley kind of streets, and I think that Public Works Director has a whole list of them.
Great.
It's
And
a
I'm
big
totally
list.
fine with that. I just wanted clarification on when this would be applied and when it wouldn't. So, thank you.
So if there are streets in particular that, I mean, we would certainly take that feedback before the engineering standards come back, and I know that Terry's really busy, so I'm not certain when that, I know that the engineering department has been working really hard on tweaks to bring
Yeah.
in a resolution for the engineering standards, and we would anticipate that this would be part of that big overall package.
Great.
We could take
Okay.
it as a one item if you prefer, but I think the idea was to bring everything all together.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Jen.
Councilor Willman.
Yeah, just a couple of real quick questions, Jen. And kind of following up one with Shelley, hadn't done that in a long time. That Shelley had, that's, Lincolnwood is the one go up Sayre Park and it goes up and curves around and curves, that doesn't have any sidewalks on it right now, right? Do I remember that correctly? It's been a while since I've been up there.
They have the big lots up there, too.
Yeah,
And if there's the 1 acre lots, I don't know if they're that big.
I don't
then
think
it
they are.
wouldn't.
But assume they're not for a moment, and we have a street like that where there's no sidewalk, and somebody's gonna add onto their house that would require, they're gonna put a second story on or something, would require them to normally have a sidewalk. They can come back and try to be added to the list and say, wait a minute, it doesn't apply. They just have to wait to build until they get that approved, to be exempted.
So they could, if there's a, they can make an argument that it's too steep or there's an issue there. And so I think that the engineering standards and this language allows for some flexibility there. And we added this additional language related to, because what was in the code before you changed it tonight, said that all new development and redevelopment required the sidewalks to be installed. And so we tried to add some language related to, if it's not scraping the house and starting over, that it's actually on the screen now. So 50% or less of the exterior walls of a roof building within a 2-year period. Structural additions of less than 500 square feet in a single lot, or building elevation
Jen, I'm
changes.
not trying to make this.
Cosmetic. Yeah, I'm just saying that,
Maybe
we've added
it's more
that.
complex, I want to try to drag this
Yeah.
out. I just don't want to create a sidewalk on one lot, on a long street, nobody else has a sidewalk on it, unless we're decided that as a matter of policies, everybody redevelops, so we're going to make them put a sidewalk in, and I think we've got to be careful of that, because it would be absurd to have one house with a sidewalk and not going anywhere.
Right, and so if there are streets where we didn't, in the list that we contemplated, that we don't have that right, we can certainly add some
Okay,
streets.
thank you, that's what I was, the other question is real non-technical or technical, I guess. The cost, the 40 and the 71, is that the current construction cost per linear foot?
It was based on some information that Assistant Engineer Jessica Bowser had put together in May of last year. So it's based on that, and I'm certain it was based on a current project at the time. So it's, a little more than half-year-old.
I just remember construction costs keep doing this, so I want to be careful that we don't undercut ourselves and don't get enough money to use this money in the right places, so.
And if you're not comfortable with this evening, we can put a climber in there. I know that the system improvement fees for wastewater have a climber on them, so if you would like to add a CPI climber or some other kind of mechanism where we put something in there like that, we'd be happy to do that.
It's a resolution, I think, if you come back, you see the cost go up, I think let's just be careful of that. I have no problem with the current ones, I just want to know where it came from. Thanks.
Other questions for staff?
Again,
Councilor Stepp.
I am questioning why we're continuing to question this when this has been approved. If we're going to take it off the agenda, let's.
This is a different one.
I know, but if we're going to vote on it.
This is a different
I
one.
understand, but can someone make a motion or we're not going to?
We haven't got to that point yet.
We were still asking questions of staff.
Thanks. Sorry, I pressed it again because I thought it went off. So the fees are put into, just to confirm, they're put into a fund for future development, pathways, trails, that type of stuff, if I understand correctly.
So we added this language, and it was a concern that Planning Commission had the first time that one of these kind of projects came up where we were talking about the cash in lieu fee. So this is a recommendation from the Planning Commission, and they worked on the language. The all fees paid pursuant to this section shall be deposited in a separate fund to be used to undertake future projects to accommodate pedestrian improvements. So, and it could be a trail, it could be a sidewalk someplace else.
Which leads to my question, sorry. So after having this conversation, and we went through this a couple council sessions ago, and we did the first approval on the other amendment, I walk through my neighborhood a lot. I walk through there all the time anyways. There are no sidewalks anywhere. I don't have the problems they have in Ward 4. We have wide open streets, and people use the streets for traffic and that type of stuff. But if traffic patterns change, do these fees get applied to that specific kind of thing to kind of mitigate what that traffic pattern change might do? Or does that have to, I'm just trying to figure out what point in time do we take care of those neighborhoods that may have different traffic patterns coming up because of something happening?
I'm going to defer to the Public Works Director.
Sorry, you're the engineer. I mean, like, there are no sidewalks anywhere except on the little section of Blake from 23rd Street to the hospital, but everything else in that neighborhood is, everybody just goes on the streets, they walk their dogs, the kids ride their bikes, and so it'll be, impacted with some changes in development or anything like that.
So, I think we would look at adding sidewalks to a neighborhood when we had a redevelopment project there in general. We would probably apply those funds in that scenario. But I would say that if there are small projects like along Blake, I believe there was a section of sidewalk that was identified in our small projects list that Charlie was referring to earlier, that's actually readopted by the council every year. And it was a need, a lower cost need that, at least was identified, and we were hoping to find small project funds for. So, when we bring those small project lists to the council, they will have been vetted by the Transportation Commission. But if the council has places where you guys think that sidewalk or, other transportation improvements should be added kind of on a small scale or even a large scale, we'll have a large project list as well. I mean, we could add projects at that point. So it wouldn't have to wait for a neighborhood reconstruction.
Okay, so you wouldn't have to wait for this fee, but these fees could be applied to that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for staff? Okay. Any comments from the public? Thank you. Okay. I will bring it back to council for further comments and or motion. Paula?
I don't want to make it, because I'm not supporting it.
Okay. I'm sorry, I think I pressed my button twice.
Oh, okay. So
Remember, so I didn't have a comment. Although I can go ahead and,
if somebody wants to make a motion.
I can make a motion to approve Resolution 2020. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Glenwood Springs, Colorado, setting fees in lieu of sidewalk pursuant to Section 070-040-070 of the Glenwood Springs Municipal Code.
Second.
It's been motioned by Paula, seconded by Charlie. Any further discussion? Let's call the question. You were reaching quick, I think.
Hershey, no. Steph, yes. Godish, yes. Kalk, yes. Voorhees, yes. Willman, yes. Motion passes.
All right, thank you. Can we take a 5-minute break and reconvene at 8:06?
8:06, yeah.
All right,
Deborah? Yep.
back in session.
Because of their policies, yeah,
Do I bang the gavel when I go back in and out of session, or is that just the beginning and end?
into everything.
It's like, I don't care what they believe, I like Chick-fil-A.
It feels official. All right, appointment to boards and commissions.
Introducing the transportation committee to the council. I totally spaced.
I will read what I wrote.
What?
Nothing. We've had, the following boards and commissions had applicants and positions filled. Leslie Ann Gallagher is appointed to the Volunteer Fire Pension Board on recommendation above myself as liaison to that board. Rick Mayer is appointed to the Building Boards of Appeals representing a contractor on recommendation of Steve Davis. Their liaison, Ellen Dole, is appointed to the Housing Commission regular seat on advisement of Shelley Kopp, their liaison. The Financial Advisory Board has 3 seats available, and 3 seats have been appointed: Steve Beckley, Mike McCollum, and Monroe Wilcox. We are now going to be voting on Tourism and Promotion Board. We have our sheets in front of us. One says P and Z, one says Tourism and Promotion.
Do I get to put in multiple ballots?
That's, I think if we need a second ballot, right?
Or a
Yeah.
third.
So we're doing tourism right now?
Tourism and Promotion.
I want to
So we
stop the
just do
ballot
it a
box.
check mark?
Sort of like
Can we
the
do
US
both
Senate.
at the same time?
Do,
Or 1,
yeah,
2,
yeah, we do a check mark.
or 1, 2, who we prefer.
Do you want 1, 2?
No, I don't think we want 1, 2. I think we just want check marks.
But can I vote for both boards right now?
No,
No.
No,
So
just-
which one's first?
Tourism and Promotion.
Okay,
We
thank you.
just put our heads down on the desk and use our hands and vote.
That's actually the best idea
Some of
we've
us might
had this
pass
evening.
out.
I don't know why we have multiples.
In case there needs to be a second round.
Yeah.
Or there's ties.
Sometimes it's a tie.
Right, and
Okay.
count 'em.
Ashers, are you
Is there
passed
6?
already?
Somebody didn't vote? Oh, there.
I didn't vote.
You don't have to.
No, she was holding my ballot secret. No, I forgot to turn it on.
John Goss, Nancy Hurd. Nancy Hurd, Ben West. Nancy Hurd, Ben West. John Goss, Nancy Hurd. John Goss, Nancy Hurd. John Goss, Nancy Hurd.
Okay, we have Nancy Hurd and John Goss.
Okay, next ballot, we're going to do P and Z. Mark, we have 2 seats available. Please mark, how do we want to do this?
Left side for regular and right side for alternate.
There you go. Left side for regular, right side for alternate.
And how many alternates?
1,
1 alternate and 2 regulars.
correct.
Okay.
But you careful, but
Yeah.
that's right. Take it easy. You're very nice. I wouldn't yell at you,
So you understand? Excellent.
but he's a baby. He's a baby.
Oh.
Where do I sit?
There goes the secret ballot.
Nice. Secret and dirty.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There you go.
So how about this color clear?
I think there's all 6 there.
I wouldn't go clear, but that color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those 6 of us.
Well, clearly you won't see it again.
Yeah.
I voted for Steve Davis. I just turned one in for Steve Davis.
Write-in ballot?
Bernie Sanders. 20% of 2% disagree.
Okay, you ready?
I'm ready for
Okay, yep. Marco Denham, regular seat. Curlin Sippery,
Wait, say that again.
Marco Denham and Carolyn Sipperly,
Regular?
regular seats.
Okay.
Ben West, alternate.
Okay. Okay, and who's alternate?
Ben West.
Okay.
Marco Denham, regular. Carolyn Sipperly, regular. Ben West, alternate.
I think I fucked up my vote.
Mark O'Dam, regular. Tim Malloy, regular. Ben West, alternate. Mark O'Dam, regular. Carolyn Sipperly, regular. Ben West, alternate. Marco, regular. Carolyn, regular. Ben West, alternate. Marco, regular. Dean Kinkle, regular. And I have 2 people for alternate, Tim and Carolyn.
I don't think that'll materially affect the vote. It was decided before that ballot.
Okay. We have Marco Denham with 6 votes for regular, Carolyn Kipley with 4 votes for regular, and then Ben West with 5 votes for alternate.
Sounds like 3 winners.
I'm sorry, Council?
I just think, since Marco got the votes, you probably want a finding on the record that it was deemed vital, as reflected by the votes.
Well,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, actually,
Okay.
so let me read this quick statement. This is part of our code, appointments in terms of boards and commissions. Specifically, subsection C, limited terms of members, unless it's deemed vital by the city council that an appointed member of a board or commission be retained in office, each member shall be replaced after having served for 6 years on a board or commission. However, nothing in this subsection shall be construed to prevent the appointment of a member to a new term where, at the expiration of his or her current term, she will have served for less than 6 years. And this is applicable for 2 of our appointments, actually. Nancy Hurd has served 2 terms on the tourism board. It was deemed vital that the Hot Springs, Iron Mountain Hot Springs and Adventure Park have a representative on the tourism board because they represent such a base of tourism. I believe, I hope I'm not editorializing too much on behalf of council. And then it was also deemed, I guess just via our vote, that Marco Diem, I think unanimously, be elected for another term. And I think that speaks to his importance and vitalness of that board. Is that okay with everybody, how I worded that? Okay. Good with you. All right. Boards and commission. We are on the second page. 7:20 p.m. Bus system rebranding.
Just
an hour short.
We're rolling along.
Hello again. I'd like to introduce Linda DePriest. She is our Transit and Planning and Development lead, replacing Tanya Allen. She will
Hi.
be
Welcome.
leading our bus system and our pedestrian infrastructure thinking.
Just thinking, not doing.
Yeah. So I just wanted to introduce Linda before I launch into the bus system rebranding. And in the future, I'm sure you'll get to hear more from her as we
Welcome,
bring
Linda.
more of these.
Very excited to have you on board.
Thank you.
So in early 2019, the council requested that we evaluate a bus wrap for our new buses that was a little bit more reflective of our community. We had a new bus delivered, and the colors that were chosen were pretty bland, and I think the council wanted to evaluate another design. So we did go out with an RFP and chose Studio 6 to design a new bus wrap for us. In late October, Studio 6 held a public meeting here in the city, and they had a pretty good showing for a very snowy night. And one of the conversations out of that meeting was about the name of Ride Glenwood Springs. They thought that it could be renamed and it could be more creative and hopefully attract more people that would ride it if we rename the system into something else. They threw around a few ideas out there of River Run or Flow. But to go through a formal naming process, they would, reevaluate more names and bring them back to another public meeting for input. And then a final step would be to bring it to our attorney, actually, for a trademark analysis, if, we wanted to proceed in that direction. From a marketing standpoint, it sounds like renaming of your bus system has value. RAFTA has done it locally. They have the Velociraptor logo and name. Other examples are Boulder's Hop Bus. And, I just randomly picked another city. Sedona has a VertiLinks bus system. Honestly, as an engineer, I don't know how effective the idea of having more of a creative, catchy name is, but Jen, who's much more of an expert in these kinds of things, has told me that it's actually a valuable thing to do. So Studio 6 did give us a proposal to go through this process, with additional public meetings and evaluation, their evaluation of the name from a trademark and a use standpoint. Again, it would need to be turned over finally to an attorney for the final steps. But their proposal is $34,916 to go through this bus renaming process. The amount wasn't funded in the 2020 budget. However, we did receive the $40,000 in grant funding from the state for the congestion study, which that money could be used to offset the cost of the rebranding contract extension. So with that, I'll entertain any questions you have.
Paula?
So it sounds like this was approved by the council before I came on board, and so we've paid Studio 6 for something already, but it wasn't the actual bus wrap. It was, I'm just kind of confused on what we paid them for.
Yeah, I apologize.
And how much we paid them.
So the contract with Studio 6 currently is $24,000, $24,416. And what the scope of work was to develop a bus wrap, so colors and images that would be on the bus. And I think the idea with this contract was that we would use the original Bride Glenwood Springs name. They had that public meeting, and at the public meeting, there were some parts of that, the people that were there that thought that it could have a much more catchy, nice name. So the additional money requested would pay for that naming process.
Did we get colors and
They have developed some designs. They haven't brought them back for a second public meeting to evaluate the colors and designs, so I haven't seen them, but I understand that.
And that's still part of their first contract?
Yeah.
That we've completely paid for or have not paid for?
No, we've made a partial payment on it. We haven't completely paid for it.
Okay.
But we owe it to them, correct?
Sorry?
We owe that money to them?
Still,
Okay.
yes, under the original contract for the bus wraps.
Okay.
But that doesn't include this new part of the new name?
It doesn't include the name process.
Okay.
So the total,
Sorry.
oh,
Do you mind?
no, that's fine.
Go ahead, Rick.
No, I'm going to yield to Shelley.
Okay.
She's
No,
all
just,
ready to go. Yeah.
I'm just clarifying the numbers that Paula's. So this is adding an additional 10,000 to bring the 10,500 to bring the total contract amount up to the 34,916. Is that right, Terry?
No, it would be adding 34,916 to the 24,416. So,
okay.
It's for a total contract in the range of 58,000 for the entire process, including the wraps and the name.
Okay.
So I'll yield, because that was my question too. So
Oh, it was.
just uncanny how that works up there
Yes.
sometimes.
Great minds.
You guys meld over there, so.
All right, any other question for Terry? All right, is there any member of the public that would like to comment, Christian? No.
How about the chief of police?
Okay. All right, I'll bring it back to council for additional comments and/or a motion. Tony, do you have something to say?
On Friday, there was a snowstorm, remember, Deborah? And I had the day off. and I need to go to the Hotel Colorado for lunch, and I did take the bus, and it was there, but I don't know that people waiting for the bus or the poor woman I helped and my mother onto the bus really care what it looked like or what it was named. I understand the Velociraptor, although I don't get it, because Rafta, it's not like, oh, there's the Velociraptor, and I'm not going to take that other bus system to Aspen. There's not really a choice. It seems fine to me. I talked earlier this evening about wasting money. I would encourage council to deny this, and we'll just leave the buses as they are. They work fine in their prime job, which is to get people where they need to go. Now, if someone was interested in paying us to advertise on the buses, I would certainly be interested in that, but I'm not going to support this. Thank you.
Is that a motion?
Well, is there a motion? Yes, I can make a motion for this ordinance, but I'm going to vote against it.
Okay.
Okay, I would make a motion to approve this ordinance.
To disapprove?
To
No,
approve?
No, I mean, can I make a motion,
Yes,
Madam?
of course you can.
And it's not an ordinance, it's just a proposal.
Oh, yeah, I would make a motion to deny.
Okay.
Okay.
You said approve, so.
Well, I mean, either way, it doesn't matter. I'm voting not for it. So,
Your
yes.
motion does matter.
Well, now it does, you're right. So I'm going to vote to disapprove this planned expenditure, yes.
Okay.
Question.
Is there a second?
Are we approving or disapproving?
This is a motion to
We would
disapprove.
deny, we would deny
Yeah.
the spending this money.
I would second that.
Okay. Been moved by Tony, seconded by Paula. Further conversation, Council Cobb.
I have a question, Terry, then also. So it sounds like the whole idea for this complete rebranding and renaming came from out of the public sessions that were done for the new wraps.
Yes.
Was it a strong sentiment from that group, or was it just a few comments that were collected, or can you expand on that a little bit, please?
I wasn't at the public meeting.
Okay.
I've read the notes and gotten some input from Tanya, who was at the meeting. And my understanding was that it was a strong sentiment, and that, the public meeting was held on a night that was really stormy. There were, 12 or 15 people there, including, some prominent members of our community that were advocating for, this renaming.
Okay. So the original amount, which was about 25,000, it sounds like, and now this additional amount of 34, the original amount was in our budget for 2020?
Yes, or actually for 2019, it was approved, this contract was approved in 2019.
Okay, oh, that's right.
So, but,
Okay.
yeah, this additional amount would need to come out of a 2020 budget.
Okay, all right. I'm mixed on this. It seems like a lot of money to do a rebranding. Again, it's not my expertise. I know it takes time and money to do these things. But I do see the value of, things like the Velociraptor. They're catchy, and they get people's attention. Also, the new Mustang service that CDOT has is very popular, and when you say ride Mustang, everybody knows what that means, and it kind of creates excitement about it. So whether we can create that level of excitement on our small service in Glenwood Springs and whether it's justified at this cost, I'm a little bit mixed on.
Mm-hmm.
Charlie?
My question is, where does the money come from if we approve this? And maybe it's there, and I read this packet a week ago, so I apologize, I've forgotten.
We were thinking that it would come out of some of the funds that were allocated for the congestion study. We have received, grant funding as well as an offset from RAFTA.
And you just said that, and I lost that, I apologize.
No worries.
But if we did that, then that would mean we'd have to put save that money into the congestion study from some other source, right?
No, I think, our portion of the congestion study has been reduced, and I think we're at like 216,000 now in the congestion study, and the congestion study has been funded out of multiple sources, some of which have come from the bus tax fund. Steve, can you help me with the other sources for the congestion study?
Just had some in capital projects, and then I think we had some in GID.
Yeah, for the parking element.
Most of the bus tax.
Yeah.
But if we used it for that, then we wouldn't have to use as much money out of those funds. If we use
I guess, the amount overall would be reduced from those funds
rhetorical
that we would
question.
have to take.
Yeah, probably a rhetorical question.
I think it is, like, we are not, like, super pushing this. We are following up on something we heard from the public. So,
So
12 people.
my comment on it, I guess, is this. Well, I think it may be a great idea. I agree Mustang and Velociraptor and all those things have catchy things, but I think I tend to agree with Mr. Hershey, and I'm not sure that it is, and I think Paula's comment, if it was that there, Shelley, I remember who made that, but we got a really small system. I could see, why don't we have a naming contest and give an award of $5,000 to somebody we think is a name that we like that comes up in front of us and save $30,000. So I don't think this is not a good expenditure of money. I can't support it.
Okay. Paula?
I was going to refer a little bit to Shelley's comment of $34,000 for branding is really kind of not out of reach, but I think what is a little out of reach is that we are agreeing with Tony a bit. We need to start kind of looking at our money and going, what do we need to pay for right now? Right now, we haven't even decided what we want to do with that bus route in Glenwood Springs, how RAFTA is going to tie to it. We've got the congestion study, so I don't really think this is the time to say, let's rename the bus. I think I'd like to see what Studio 6 has done so far and take care of that, and then if we go back to renaming later, we'll do that. But at this point in time, I don't feel like this is the right move for us to make financially.
All right, seeing no more comments, let's call the question.
So this is
Can we
just
clarify
restate the
what
motion?
clarify the motion?
I was really ready to move on for a minute, I
The
guess.
motion was to
Negative or-
disprove this expenditure. Disprove.
To deny.
Deny.
Can we use the word deny?
Isn't the word disprove appropriate, Your Honor?
Let's just do deny, because we know what that
To
means.
deny. Disapprove. Or disprove. Deny.
Okay.
Call the question.
Hershey, yes. Step, yes. Godish, yes. Kaup, yes. Voorhees, no. Wellman, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
Yeah.
And welcome to the city. We're really glad to have you.
Thanks, Liz.
Sorry to start on
Congratulations.
that note.
Not her fault.
Come back and tell us what you think of the next thing.
We can put that money towards traffic calming or some other.
No, we
Deborah,
can save the streets with it.
do we have to do Solomaya Salon? We do.
I believe it would be very helpful.
Okay. All right. Oh, well, you're here.
Hey,
I'm sorry, Hannah.
here. Did you not see me?
she's been waiting.
I thought you were just here to hang out.
Oh, yeah, that's usually what I like to do with my Tuesday evenings.
The new chief is just sitting there in the back in a suit, sweating his butt off, I'm sure. So
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and thank you for letting me present this. It's very important to a certain business as well as to staff. So I have two items before you, and they're very closely related. The first one is a consideration of an extended system improvement fee plan for a specific business, and the second one is staff's attempt to amend this so that it applies to code in general and we don't keep having this same issue. And I'll provide background on how system improvement fees work. If you have questions, happy to answer those. It gets a little into the weeds, so I'm going to try and save some time and keep it pretty general. This is a request from a new business locating in town called Sol Maya Salon, located at 1001 Grand Avenue in Suite 103. They are a new business, and so they applied for a business license as is required, and part of that process, the business license comes to Community Development Department for review to check that the zoning is okay for the use, and also a review of water usage, which ties into our system improvement fees. So in this case, the previous use in this building was a retail office, and the new use going in is a hair salon. So there's a increased usage of water in categories. And so at that point, staff looks at the historic usage, which for this case, a retail office, is calculated at 0.5 EQRs per 1,000 square feet, and EQR is our measurement unit. And then we look at the new use, which in this case is a hair salon, and they are calculated at 0.3 EQRs per salon chair or hair station. And after doing those calculations, staff saw that there was still an amount that would be due by Sol Maya of approximately $4,200.
Currently, code allows for applicants to pay this amount over a 6-month period if they desire. And so we let Solmaya know that that was an option to her, and she was requesting to see if it could be extended. Staff informed her that we currently don't have that option, and it would be something that needed to be approved by City Council, which is why we're here tonight. So attachments to the staff report include the current plan that Solmaya entered into on a 6-month payment plan. As you can see, she has already made her first payment, which amounts to $711 a month for the next, she made the first, so the next 5 months. What staff is proposing is to have you review an extended 12-month payment plan, so she would have 11 more payments, and that would bring that monthly payment down to $323 a month, which is a much more affordable number for her as a startup business. So that is what is in front of you tonight. The second item that I have gets to the actual amendment language so that we can have criteria to review these types of situations and get city manager approval. And that language that I have included and I will go into on the next item, Solmaya would meet all 3 criteria, which really gets to providing relief for the small businesses that come in and have a larger amount of system improvement fees due when they move into a new building or construct a new building. So I think I'm going to stop it there on this one and open it up to questions for you guys, and then we'll get into a little bit more detail on the code amendment next.
Rick?
This February 11th, have they made the February 10th payment, or are they sort of waiting for council to make?
Thank you for pointing that out. So obviously we had planned to be at the last council meeting that it was rescheduled. And so in speaking with her, we're going to change the dates on the attachment that you have in front of you to start next Monday, so that they don't happen over the weekends. So those dates will be changed.
So when, does this request come up frequently from small businesses?
Yes, actually it does.
Okay.
We've seen it happen quite a bit, and really it is more of these mom and pop smaller businesses, especially hair salons, nail salons, and things that are categorized in our code as a higher water usage category. If an office were to locate in this exact same spot, it's the same level, so we wouldn't be charging any system improvement fees. It's only because her business is in a higher category, because hair salons have proven to use more water than a retail office, retail or office. So we do frequently see that with this specific category and others. And it can get, this one is 4,267. It's on the lower side. We do get up into the tens of thousands.
So would we be opening the floodgates if we were to like set a threshold of maybe either defining what a small business is or defining like a maximum by which we'd be willing to, or a minimum which we'd be willing to go into a 12-month payment?
Mr. Voorhees, you are like 5 pages ahead. That is actually, the criteria for review is contained in the code amendment that I will chat about, but it does actually specify a threshold of number of employees, that it occurs in a multi-unit building. So this gets to the fact that if there's only 1 meter, we can't individually look at how much a business is using. That makes it very easy to kind of negotiate and do a review. And then also that the system improvement fees exceed $3,000. So getting to the small business and also just kind of a logistical component on water meters, and then also the amount paid. $3,000 over a 6-month period. Staff sees that as more feasible than what we're dealing with here, so that's where we set that threshold. But those are criteria for your review on the next item. This one is being considered by itself for expediency's sake, because in order to issue Solmaya her business license so that she could start the salon, she had to make that first payment and enter into the 6-month agreement. So now we're running up against her next payment of $711, and we'd like to reduce that down to $323 and extend it out over the next 11 months.
Thank you.
Councilor Wilman.
The question, either Anna or Hannah, in looking at the ordinance, because I've skipped ahead 5 pages, it doesn't appear that we currently have the 6-month in the code. Is that correct, or am I misunderstanding that?
Go ahead, Anna.
Oh, it's in a different section? If you go into the recitals.
Because we're adding this paragraph 4, which puts a 12-month plan, but I don't see where we're taking something out.
080-010-060 authorizes a payment plan for utility service charges, including system improvement fees. So, oh no, that's up to 6 months. What is your question? If a year is allowed?
In the ordinance that is being proposed, it'll be the next thing we voted on, which is 050, it's got a new paragraph 4, which has 12 months, but there isn't anything, where's the 6-month one?
080-060
050.
050.
Yeah.
They're just adding this, they're not taking out the other one.
It's a different section.
If I might, we
Yeah.
have situations where we have other payments for finance that are related to utility payments, so, and we spoke with the finance director, and she didn't want to extend this to 12 months for a utility kind of issue, and so we are adding a different section that's specific to system improvement fees.
All right, thank you. So my question is can we legally, without passing the ordinance first, extend this? And I don't want to put her in a difficult place. It's not can we actually say, I'm going to give this 12 months when it's not in our code allowing us to do that?
Well, this first request, if I may, Anna, this first request is not changing code. City council has authority to waive fees in other sections of the code, so I believe that's how we're interpreting this. And it's not even waiving fees, it's extending out what's currently allowed in code. I suppose if necessary, we could move the ordinance first, but the reason why we're putting this one first is she actually needs approval now, so to extend it.
And I fully
Yeah.
understand that, and there may be other solutions. I just don't want us to take an action we're not
Sure.
legally able to do, and if you're assuring me and council's assuring us that we can legally do this without passing the ordinance, I'm comfortable. If not, then maybe another alternative would be is we can let her be a little behind for the February payment, and by March, it'll be approved. Because the second reading, this probably won't be able to happen to the first meeting in March because of the timing, because of the change in the meeting, so.
Right.
I wouldn't have any trouble with, she pays the lower fee you're talking about. We kind of unofficially just don't say anything, we don't call her on it, but we get the ordinance passed, and then she can effectively have it as soon as amended agreement after that time. That would, I'm fully comfortable, I want to help this lady.
Process question, I
Yeah,
understand.
yeah.
I'm going to defer to legal on that one.
I'm looking for the citation in the code now. Do you want to talk about the ordinance and then we can go back to the agreement?
I guess my question, Ann, is can we actually approve this 12-month plan without some authority in the code to do that?
I'm trying to find authority in the code, so we don't have to
I like
address the
that
question.
idea, yeah.
I think Anna needs 5 minutes in which I can go ahead and discuss the second item. Okay.
Before you do, it seems like we have another question from Counselor Stapp.
Does extending this by another 6 months affect the planning department in any way, workload-wise, money-wise, or anything like that? For
No.
this or the change of code?
No, it's very similar, and we have that process set up for 6 months. So as you can see, the attached 12-month plan, it's just Solmaya coming in and making those payments, and we have it tracked with our normal building permit process, so it really isn't a whole lot more work.
Thanks.
All right, ordinance time.
Okay, switching it up. So as we discussed, Community Development Department assesses system improvement fees, and we've come across this frequently where small businesses are unable, or it's very challenging to make the system improvement fee payments in a 6-month payment plan. So in order to be a little bit more flexible for payment allowances on small businesses, we've come up with some criteria for an extension to a 12-month payment plan, which an applicant would apply for, and then a city manager would approve. And those criteria, as I mentioned before, so the first one, the use is occurring in a multi-tenant building where the tenant space does not have an individual water meter. So multi-tenant buildings with a single water meter don't allow staff to review that specific use. Sometimes we set up 6-month or 1-year reviews of water use when we get this large discrepancy. So after a year, we can see, is the category that the code has matching what this business is actually using, and adjust accordingly. And that also means adjusting the amount they paid in possibly a refund. But without that ability to look at the single meter, multi-tenant buildings make it somewhat challenging. So that's what this first criteria is getting to. The second criteria, the applicant business has 5 employees or less. So as I mentioned, this is really geared towards the smaller businesses. Our much larger businesses have also large fees that come up, but we don't have as many requests for a payment plan coming from them. So we set the threshold at 5 employees or less, and you can discuss that, agree, and adjust as necessary. That's just kind of where we started and what we've seen come in. And the final criteria, system improvement fees for water and sewer totaling more than $3,000. As I mentioned before, $3,000 over 6 months is somewhat financially feasible, so we chose that threshold as well, which you're welcome to move up or move down accordingly with what you think is appropriate. So we are proposing that an applicant meet a minimum of 2 out of the 3 criteria to be considered for an extended payment plan. So they would turn in the application showing which criteria they meet. Staff would review and make a recommendation to the city manager, who would either deny or approve, and we'd set up that payment plan. I did list some of the comprehensive plan goals that we feel that this is supportive of. So maintaining Glenwood's role as a regional center, increasing the vibrancy of commercial success in the downtown, sustainable economic diversity, and support social diversity. All of these really are getting at economic development incentives, and we feel supporting small businesses in this way, not giving them a discount, but allowing them to pay that sum over an extended period of time, supports those goals, and as Paula asked, does not tax staff too much more than what's already set up. So staff is recommending City Council approval of a 12-month system improvement payment plan with the suggested criteria.
Any questions for staff?
Where'd they go?
Legal has run out.
You're on your own.
I thought I
Carl never
talked
runs
slowly enough.
Carl Hammond never runs out.
They are conferring.
Objection.
Any questions on these criteria?
We're still in the question phase on this ordinance. Seeing none, we'll open it to the public for comments. Seeing none, we'll bring it back for motion and or discussion. Hey, Shelley.
Yes. I would like to thank staff for bringing this forward and making the recommendations, and I would move to approve ordinance number 3, series 2020, for the extension of payment of system improvement fees for small businesses. I think it will help to support those businesses. So.
Second it?
It's been moved by Shelley, seconded by Rick. Further conversation. Let's call the question.
Hershey, yes. Step, yes. Godish, yes. Kaup, yes. Voorhees, yes. Willman, yes. Motion passes.
Okay, do we also need to take action?
So Anna, while you're out, we approve the ordinance.
We approve the ordinance. Great. Does that make it easier now to approve?
Do we need to take motion or action on Sol del whatever?
We still need to take an action.
Timing of it.
Okay.
Okay.
The timing of the ordinance, as John pointed out, there's the pending ordinance doctrine that, I'm not even sure how that works, but I could not find anything specific in the code that addresses city council's ability to waive that specific fee, but as a matter of course, I was conferring with staff, it is, council can set fees and can and has waived fees in different circumstances.
Okay. And we're not actually waiving a fee, we're
Altering.
Agreeing to a payment plan, like any creditor has authority to do.
Which we are.
Right, yeah, you are the party to the agreement, and so as the person who is owed this amount, I think you have discretion to decide in what manner it's paid.
Charlie, do you have a motion?
Yeah, here's my view. I think the city manager's got authority to look at permits that are pending and what she wants to do to enforce those. And if she should decide that the only payment this particular applicant needs to make for the month of February pending a second reading of this ordinance, I think she's got the authority to do that. And I don't want to pass this resolution because I'm not sure we have the authority to do it. But I think my direction from council would be, go for it, work with this person.
I'd agree.
I just don't want to take that risk, because it might set a precedent for something that we don't anticipate today.
I'm more than happy to
Back to Queen Deborah.
take that responsibility.
All right, let's just call the question authorizing Deborah to do this.
I don't think we need to. I think she's got the authority.
Direction then.
I'm happy to do it.
Great. All right, next item. Thank you, Hannah.
Thank you, Hannah. And I agree with Shelley. Thank you for bringing this up. I think it's a
Thanks, kind
good
of,
thing
Hannah.
for small business.
Hannah's last.
Klusman.
What?
Klausman.
Klausman? I thought it was Klusman.
I think it's Klausman. Some take tomato, some take tomato.
Okay, item number 20. That's right, South Midland Construction Management Contract Approval. We're gonna be tough on you.
So I'd also like to introduce Ryan Johnson. I don't know if all of you have had the chance to meet our newest assistant city engineer.
Yeah, welcome.
Welcome.
Hello, welcome.
Ryan's been doing a great job trying to move the South Midland project ahead, and we are getting closer and closer to being able to bid the project. We are still on track to complete right away by the end of February, although we're kind of wrapping up remaining issues, and hopefully we will get there. So what we would like to ask the council today is to approve the construction management contract for this work. Bringing on the construction management contract early allows us to have them help us with the final bid project and, questions that result from the bid, as well as, all of the functions that we hire construction management for on a large project that has state or federal funding, as this does. Which includes, all of the, the daily inspections and the multiple testing and the materials testing and the, all of the different records that we have to keep by America and the labor relations, interviews, those kinds of things. So we had an RFQ go out, and we had a lot of interest in the RFQ, and we got one proposal from SGM, who was a designer of record for the project, in the amount of $991,877. And we'd like to ask the council to approve that contract for that amount tonight.
So, couple questions. What was the amount that we paid so far? I'm not picking on 27th Street Bridge, but just to juxtapose, what was the amount of the construction contract that we've paid so far, that we've approved so far for 27th Street?
$1.7 million.
1.7 million. Okay.
Yes.
What is your opinion on why we only received one bid for the construction management of this project?
Well, I did make a few phone calls, and it seemed like a lot of the other firms that were interested didn't have the staffing available for the time frame of this project. That was primarily one of the responses from other. And
is the, I know, Terry, I have been very interested in the timeline of this project.
Yes.
And I believe we have 3 years, I'm looking towards Deborah, in order to start this project, in order to be able to retain the Build America grant. When is that 3 years up?
I believe, when did we get the Build America grant? Do you have the?
I don't have that with me, but we had that meeting at the beginning of the year. I don't know if that's what started it. It was probably,
So it was,
I don't know if it's a submission or that receipt.
Yeah, I want to say it was at the end of 2018. Deborah, can you help me with?
They gave, yes, it was like in the beginning of December of 2018.
Yeah.
So essentially, we have to start the project, by the December of 2021.
We have to have fully awarded the project.
Yeah. And we will definitely make that deadline.
We will not lose that money.
No, I understand. I guess my question is, I always get nervous as I'm now asking questions. I'm going to editorialize for a second, but it's going to be wrapped in a question via a la Tony Hershey. It's a compliment on how you ask questions.
Thank you. Oh, you mean like, when did you stop beating your
That's
wife?
exactly right.
Lawyers appreciate that.
When I'm a little nervous about just one bid, and if we weren't so pressed for a timeline, and we did want to be a little more deliberate, do you think we would get additional bids for this, and we could potentially get additional bidders and more competitive bids for this process, and by extension, the full construction process? I know they're huge hypotheticals, so just do your best.
You know, I don't think, given Ryan's response and the conversations we had after the bid, that people's availability would change if we were to rebid the project. Right now we are anticipating an 18-month project, so it is a long duration. And I would say, it's not complex in the same way that the 27th Street bridge project was complex, in that it had, the slide element and the unusualness of that. It is complex in that the phasing plan is detailed, and the amount of traffic that we have to move through there is going to be difficult to manage. So the control of the job, I think, is the part of this that makes it complex or difficult. So I guess the short answer is, I don't know that we would get any additional bids on it. We had a lot of interest. I think that the companies probably evaluated it in their own way. I don't feel like our timeline was particularly short. Like, if we were to short time a construction bid and just receive a larger number or a low amount of bids. So I guess I don't believe we would. As far as the construction contract goes, we are still anticipating a right-of-way finish at the end of February, and then CDOT has a month-long process where they go through their final approvals for the plan set, and then we're hoping to be able to bid this at the beginning to the end of April. With that, it is a late-season bid, so what I'd like to do is to create flexibility in the construction bid and allow them to either enter the project site in May, June, or as late as November, so that a contractor could anticipate working in the next season with their forces and hopefully give us better prices for more flexibility in the time frame to enter the site.
Okay. And I know I have a lot of other people that have questions, so I have a couple more, but go ahead, Charlie.
Two questions I have, and as I remember, the estimated construction cost is about 12 million, is that right?
12.6, yes.
So we're looking at about 10% for the inspection and I forgot the scope.
Less, yes.
That sounds like that's in kind of a normal range of what that cost.
Yes.
Okay, that's one. And the second one, Anna, I'll put you on the spot again, because otherwise you wouldn't have fun here. We had some issues. We had some issues with the contract that we had with our 27th Street bridge inspectors because of conditions imposed upon us by the state and the feds, as I remember, from comments that Carl made. Have we worked those out? I looked at the contract. It looked like it was more of our standard contract, and can you answer that question?
Well, so this is a professional services agreement, which is different than the CDOT contract, which we're working on revising, proposing revisions to the CDOT contract to give the city some more authority and power to deal with difficult issues as they come up. So is that your question? So this contract that we're looking at right now is a professional services agreement. It's terminable at any time or, upon notice.
So is the CDOT contract the one we would enter into with the contractor to build the project?
Right.
Okay, so maybe I didn't understand the problem last time. I thought it was with also the supervision contract, but it was not.
Well, I think, jump in if I'm wrong, but I think that the issues with the CDOT contract, created, caused issues that had to extend the time and the work that the management had to perform, that the construction manager had to perform.
We're trying to fix those as we go through this, and this, if we enter in this contract, we're not getting ourselves in that bind again.
No, this contract, if you look in the packet, it's pretty much the city's standard professional services agreement. We can terminate if there's dissatisfaction with the work and only have to pay, what's been performed through the time of termination. The tricky contract is the one with CDOT that we are working, the engineer's office and our office is working on proposing to CDOT different terms that we have now to give the city more authority to deal with the problems.
Okay, and I appreciate it. That contract will be with the contractor, not with SGM.
That's correct.
Okay, all right, thank you. That answered my question.
Counselor Voorhees.
Yeah, just following up a little bit here, $991,877, and that's probably not capped. I mean, if we run into other issues that would prolong the life of this contract and getting the road constructed, what's the proposal for extra sort of pro rata days?
SGM's contract was, or SGM's proposal is different than what we received from HDR Engineering for the bridge. HDR Engineering's proposal was based on an hourly rate. So, part of our issue and the ongoing cost was the fact that the contract for the 27th Street Bridge extended, and, we were paying out hours as we went along. And as soon as, they ran out of hours with the extension of the construction contract, we had to add more hours. SGM's is different, and the basis of payment I'm looking for right now is really, it's more broad. It has project management, pre-construction, construction, and project closeout. So they're activities instead of hours. So it, in some senses, it's more limiting than the HDR contract because it's activities. There would have to be a change in the activities to justify an increase in cost.
But for right now, we don't, of course, we're all very optimistic here with the construction. And we don't foresee any problems, with the contractor or with any of the pre-engineering work that we've done. And so, and we all know that things do come up sometimes, things that were unanticipated. The 27th Street Bridge, I think, was an issue of the concrete. Nobody knew that there were rebars in the concrete and yada, yada, yada. And so, that was, I think, what I heard. But I could be wrong.
So,
Well, let me finish where I'm going here.
okay,
We can
just
do
let's
the
maybe not talk
rebuttal
about
here.
27th Street that much more.
Well,
Because there's litigation.
there's a certain kind of trigger point that's built in here. And I don't know what the trigger points would be for building South Midland. So, willing to learn, willing to know when that happens. So I was just curious how the two construction management contracts compared, and if we do have an overage, on what basis that we would have that overage. And then the second question is, we have some performance criteria, I think, that will be built into Midland. Is there performance criteria that's built into the construction management contract that we're talking about tonight?
The performance criteria, like Anna just said, it's our standard professional services agreement, so we can terminate it at any time. We have performance criteria associated with our construction contract, And for instance, for the bridge, there were milestones that we set and lane rental fees and liquidated damages. We don't have those same kinds of controls for construction management or a professional services contract. But we will for the construction contract for South Midland. There will be limitations in there. Like Anna mentioned, we're working through proposals to change some of those provisions so that we can better control how the contractor operates, control of subcontracts, control of milestones, control of the lanes. If you guys remember, we spent a lot of time in the council discussing how wide the platforms should be. And most of that conversation revolved around the idea of trying to keep 2 lanes through the project at all times. And so that's one of our guiding principles that we're going to try to control, I guess, in the South Midland construction contract. And if there is a need to take, to go to a 1-lane configuration, limits about when that can be done, and then also associated penalties for asking for that. Because that was one of the things that we found in the 27th Street contract that there were no limits on. They could ask us for concessions for allowing it to go to a 1-lane configuration, and because we wanted them to finish, because we wanted them to hold the deadlines that they set, we often allowed it. In this case, we are working towards contract provisions that would say we will allow it, but it will cost you X dollars to do that over this period of time, so that it's not just a giving on our side. There's some give and take. The contractor has a penalty for asking.
We want to have thoughtful closures and not closures, but lane restrictions. And ultimately, that we're trying to get the specs to get to that end.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilor Kopp.
Just a question
there is a
for
limited hours,
you,
so-
Terry and Brian. Do you see benefit to the city of having
Zach comes up with that.
this construction management contract go to SGM,
over
who's
these
also
hours.
the engineer of record on the design?
Round hours and SGM hours.
I do. Mike Fowler is here, and he is the lead engineer on the project, and I know Mike has spent many hours developing the phasing plan and understands it very well.
Okay.
So I think that there will be a benefit in having the designer, particularly of the phasing plan, with the understanding of exactly how the construction is supposed to move through the site, guide that construction.
Okay.
I
Okay.
think there's also some benefit just in expediency of, okay, there's a design, something that comes up in the field that we all know, there's going to be some differences that happen. There's going to be some design that's needed, that process could be streamlined more easily.
Okay.
Given that scenario.
Great, thanks.
Paul.
Taking into account that question that Shelley just had, is there any kind of part of this contract that addresses changeover in personnel at SGM who are part of this contract as far as managing it? They identify everybody and who's doing what. But I hate to go back to 27th Street Bridge. We did have turnover there that caused problems. Is there any way to prepare for that?
That is a good question.
Yeah,
Anna, do you know if that's in our professional services
There are
agreement?
provisions in this.
What was the question?
That if there was
Paul, what was your question? I was looking at somebody, didn't hear your question.
How to prepare for SGM turnover, because we encountered that problem in a previous contract where we had 3 or 4 different people kind of managing things.
It's their responsibility to manage, but I don't recall
Ryan is right on top of it, and he found the provision here. It says, "The city reserves the right to renegotiate or terminate the contract if either of the following occurs. Number 1, there's a significant 50% change in the consultant's key personnel. Or 2, the engineer of record is changed during the performance of the contract. Or 3, significant cost increases are projected." So those would be triggers that would allow us to renegotiate or terminate.
Where's that section? It is in. Because, I mean, and there's always the default termination that if there's, it says if at any time the city is dissatisfied with the services of contractor for any reason whatsoever. So if you are dissatisfied with some new personnel, you can always terminate it.
This was on page 16 of the RFP.
Oh.
Thank you. We're all a little gun shy, I guess.
No, I know, that's a perfect question.
Exhibit B is
I'm
a
pretty shy.
a minute ago.
Terry, do you think that there's any opportunity for us to negotiate this contract down a little bit?
I know I'm not the lawyer for the city.
That's a joke, Deborah. That's a joke. Sorry. You didn't laugh.
Construction litigation.
That's a joke.
It's not that funny.
You had to be
Read
there.
the jokes for me.
All right. Any other comments? Or, I'm sorry, any other questions?
Public comment.
Okay. Any comments, Christian?
No, get the road done.
That's a comment.
Mr. Feller, do you have anything to add? I think we're good. All right. I'll bring it back to council for a motion and/or further discussion. Councilor Kopp.
I would move that we award the South Midland Construction Management Contract to SGM in the amount of $991,877.
Second.
You seconded it?
I did second
Okay,
it.
you jumped in there.
Sorry. I wanted a second.
Congrats.
I'm bored. It's been moved by Shelley, seconded by myself. Further conversation. Tony.
Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice. I'm concerned that Councilman Voorhees doesn't, makes excuses for what happened at the 27th Street Bridge. This isn't me building my house and someone made a mistake. As I told you earlier in the night, that was another $265,000. I don't want to talk about that project because there's going to be litigation, but the prior council approved that and was told a number and negotiated it down and then we just paid another $250,000 to finish this project. So I'm not going to support this contract at this price. Thank you.
Tony, just point of clarification, is there a price that you would support this contract?
I would like to see a contract where we receive more than one bid. I'm not going to let the city get stiffed again like we did last time.
Okay. Councilor Willem.
In my review of the professional services agreement, and I'm sorry I'm being more lawyer than I want to be tonight, but it has attached to Exhibit B. Exhibit B is found at page 55 of our agenda packet, and this item, and it's the hourly rates. And Mike, you might correct me if I'm wrong, but for Mike, for instance, it's got his hourly rate is $169 per hour and 933 hours projected. It seems to me that if it turns out that he can't get the work done, the contract's not to exceed, but he can't get the work done, he's got to do another 100 hours of work that we're going to have to renegotiate because they're not going to work without getting paid. So I don't know, I think it's a fixed price contract, and I trust the work that SGM does for the city in the past and their ability, and I'm going to support this contract, but I think we got to understand that it could cost us more than the $981,000. If things start falling apart, as they did on the bridge, it literally, they could cost us more for supervision. And even though we'd want to, if we thought that SGM was one of the causes, we'd want to terminate the contract. We might be in the same position we were in the bridge. I just think we got to go into it with our eyes open. We could be in a place where we just got to pay to get it done. So
is this a not to exceed contract?
I think that we will write it that way. I was looking to see what Charlie saw. There is a rate schedule, and that's how they calculate the total number of hours.
Yeah.
But the preceding page to that is the price RFQ, and it does define, the people that are involved.
Right.
In addition, the geotechnical contract, and then it has a labor cost breakdown by phase. And that's where we get to the total price.
And I understand that, but what my position is that I think that if, not through any fault to SGA maybe, it's just the fault to the contractor. If we get in where they got to do another 100 hours, the total, not just Mike's work, but everybody's work, then we're going to have to pay for that.
And
we're
I would
going to have
say,
to approve we're going to have to approve a contract amendment. I'm sorry, Deborah.
if we find something we are not anticipating in the construction, we'll have to pay for that too.
Yeah.
This is.
It's unavoidable.
it's unavoidable. I mean, I'm not even saying that would happen with this, but just construction is messy and
It
there
is.
are change orders, and we got a $7 million grant for this project, and we have to follow this federal guideline.
In my view, the final comment is not any criticism of SGM or the bid, because I think the bid's within range of what it normally costs to do this kind of work, and this is complicated work, as I understand from trying to comply with the federal grant requirements and all that. I just think we have to, if we're going to vote on this, you have to understand that it is possible it'll end up being more than $991,877.
I mean, I'm a litigation attorney. I'm not going to dispute that. Anything that can go wrong can go wrong, so.
No, I'm going to support the award of the contract. I just want to make sure that we're all aware of what we're doing here, so.
Well, I mean, if we had a not to exceed contract,
But, I mean, Jonathan, we could have not to exceed contracts, like if half the mountain falls down while we're building this road,
Exactly.
something could happen. Yes, it could happen with all of our projects. We can't promise you nothing will ever go wrong.
That's what change orders are about.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there are conditions, you know, even with the HDR contract, you know, we recently approved the very last. You know, if we had to go to a design review board, or if we had to go to litigation, you know, we would be in trouble. We would need additional money to do that. And I think, you know, similarly with every contract we do, like Ann and Deborah have said, you know, there are unusual conditions that we encounter. Hopefully I think, you know, I hope this one will be run, you know, smoother than our bridge project. But, you know, just, there's no guarantees.
I agree. And again, I support it. I think it's a good idea. I think we got a good group. They've designed this and they know the project, and that helps. And we just got to recognize our risk when you're building big projects like this.
Yeah. I would also add that SGM is a local company, and, you know, I think along with other local companies, you know, Gould, Heil, they have a reputation within the city, and it is important to them that they do things that, you know, are that keep that reputation within the city. So I think having a local firm is a benefit.
Who was the contractor on 27th Street that we hired? Weren't they a local company too?
R.L. Wadsworth out of Salt Lake City,
No,
Utah.
not them, but
HDR has a local representation, yes, Joe Elson. They are mostly a Denver-based firm.
all right, seeing no more questions, let's call the question.
Yeah.
Hershey, excuse me, Hershey, no. Step, yes. Goldish, yes. Kaup, yes. Vortisch, yes. Willman, yes. Motion passes.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike, for being here.
Don't nickel and dime us, Mike.
is this last thing a first reading? Mr. Mayor, I forgot.
I'm sorry?
This next item, is that a first reading?
It is.
Okay, thanks.
All right, ordinance number 4, series 2020, levy cigarette tobacco tax electorate. Somebody tell me, what's this?
I think basically this is a codification of the tax that was approved in the November 2019 election, just amending the code to reflect that, and also implementing the marijuana tax that was approved.
That's not
Is it allocating how the proceeds are going to be used? That's why I read it.
It did mention how that would be used, yes.
If you look,
That was part of the packet.
did he mean
Yes, sorry, purpose of tax, use of proceeds.
Drug,
Shall be-
alcohol,
yes.
tobacco prevention.
Cessation, treatment, enforcement, youth mental health, detox facilities.
Subsection H, yeah. So
I'm sorry, what?
I'm talking to myself.
Yeah,
Don't worry
okay.
about it.
Yes.
So I missed the part on the marijuana part of this ordinance. I don't recall marijuana being part of it.
The what?
Marijuana? You mentioned marijuana just a minute ago, I'm just like,
Yes, it also codifies the marijuana sales tax.
I thought that was already codified.
I think that it was maybe in one section of the code, but not as a tax in this section of the code. There was no levy in the code for the marijuana tax.
That already exists. That was approved by the voters years ago.
Right, but I don't think it was codified.
Oh, okay.
Really? Sorry, I just don't remember reading about marijuana when I read through the packet.
It, in 04001030D imposes a 5% tax on retail marijuana and retail marijuana products.
In the attachments?
In the ordinance. So the ordinance adds that section to the code, imposing the retail marijuana and retail marijuana products tax of 5%.
Okay, I see it now. Thank you. I think I was just kind of like ignoring it. Got it. Thanks.
Charlie?
I move for the approval of ordinance number 4, series of 2020, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Glenwood Springs, Colorado, amending Title 040 to provide for the levy of a cigarette and tobacco sales tax as approved by the electorate on November 5, 2019.
Second.
Moved by Charlie, seconded by Tony. Any further conversation? Let's call the question.
Oh, sorry, I didn't vote.
Thank you.
Sorry, I was having an M&M.
Hershey, yes. Step, yes. Goldish, yes. Kaup, yes. Voorhees, yes. Willman, yes. Motion passes.
All right, report from city administration.
Deborah?
Yes, my report. The only thing I have is, would you guys like to take a trip to see the new facilities? New streets, buildings, the new...
Yes.
Yes.
Little tour.
I would ask them, and well, let me offer that to everybody.
Will there be a lunch
Great idea.
served? I was just kidding.
What?
I said, will there be a lunch served on the tour?
Okay.
So can we do that in lieu of having a council meeting next time? No.
Maybe.
Maybe.
I don't know if I'd want to do it as a work session just because you guys have wanted so many of them. But maybe we can just set up a separate time and I'll do a doodle poll and try to find a date that works for you guys.
Let's do lunch it. I like
Is it like an hour or so? Or more?
What do you think?
Just drive time and walk around is probably 2 hours.
So that's time for lunch.
Tony, you're talking about budget.
Jimmy John's it is.
I'm treating. It's on me.
It's on you?
Can we go to free site?
If you're treated, we can go wherever.
I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A report from the city attorney.
No, I don't have anything.
Thank you so much for filling in for.
It was my first meeting, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, it was my
You had some
pleasure.
tough questions, I appreciate it, yeah.
We are 87 minutes overdue,
Yeah,
but
not my fault.
You should
not
read
your
Robert's
fault. It's
rules
our
of
fault.
order.
Thank you, everybody.
Because Charlie's a big stickler.
I go to the planning and zoning commission.
These are right, huh?
Not that you're not, but I'm saying, like, I usually don't